Shit, this is really not letting me.
Hey, there we go. We're live.
Are we?
We're live.
Oh, wow. We're live without an intro video. That's so weird.
What's up, y'all? Can you guys hear us?
Are we?
Confirming
Oh,
that this
no.
is actually...
All right, so when Rob's going to come back in.
That's the most avoiding Babylon thing ever.
The worst intro we've ever done. We usually have I was waiting for the music to kick on and stuff. All right, so wait. I got to text Rob and tell him we're live.
That's so funny. You guys can hear us, right? Let us know in the chat. Okay, good, you guys. Awesome.
So now yesterday was an emotional day. It was crazy because I don't think anybody was expecting smoke to come out that early. Like you and I were texting and we were like, I was like, all right, so Tim's coming on tonight. Like Tim was supposed to come on with black smoke. And I left it off with him. I'm like, all right, if we get black smoke, you'll come on. If it's white smoke, you'll do your thing. I'll do my thing. So then when we got white smoke, I assumed he wasn't going to come on. So I texted you and I'm like, hey, we're going to go on. And then Tim texted me back and he's like, oh no, dude, I'm available still. Let's go on. So then I had to text you back and I'm like, oh, Tim's coming on. You're not coming. So it happened at like 11:30. And as soon as it happened, it was the fourth scrutiny and everybody's hearts dropped. And we were all like, oh no, this is bad. And Rob's coming. Hang on. Yeah, I don't know what happened, Rob, but we got it to go live. So like 11:30, that white smoke comes and everybody's hearts drop and they're like, oh my gosh, man, what is this? This can't be good. They didn't even like take that long to go. So then there were three names I was concerned with, and Prevost was one of them. And we went through this whole show yesterday, and I explained all that, and it was because of the things I heard leading up to it. I kind of blame Edward Penton a little bit for releasing that article because that put me on high alert. Is that Maddie or Iggy? Maddie, right? Yeah. So when I'm not really blaming Edward Penton, it was my own doing, but so once we see it's Prevost, like the freaking information just starts flooding in and it's just doom. And I'm watching live streams throughout the day and I'm seeing people's reactions raw because everybody was surprised by this. So it wasn't like anybody had time to like research and then go on and present a reasoned argument. It was just everybody's hearts dropped. We were like, oh my goodness, it's an American and he's from Chicago. And he's got this in his past, and it looks like they set it up for a long time. Like, it was just so much information came out. So we jumped on last night, and it was very doom and gloom. And after Tim left the show, Rob and I hung out with the audience for like another hour. And I think like right away it started hitting me a little bit. But when I went to bed last night, it just like really hit me. And the thing is, Rob didn't want to come on, and I should have trusted his instincts because we're so used to just coming on and firing off our opinions. But when you have raw emotion like that and something so important, like it would have been wise to hold off, but everybody wants to be the first person to react. Like that's the stupid world we're in now, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, we didn't say anything untrue yesterday. Like, it's not like we lied. Like, these were all actual facts that came out, so we presented them. And part of me is happy we did because I think it should give people, like, a reasonable caution as we go into this. But I woke up this morning. I went into work at, like, 2:30 this morning at an early start. And I was just thinking about it all morning. And then around, like, 8 or 9 a.m., I just said... I tweeted out, I said, yesterday, a lot of us criticized Cardinal Robert Prevost, but today we should all be praying for Pope Leo XIV. And I said that without like checking what everybody else was doing. And then like, as the day went on, I just started watching one by one, all the trads kind of softening their hearts to this whole thing and just going, you know what, like because I know what we said on the show yesterday with Tim, especially, it was like, he's going to give these gestures and you're going to soften your heart. And then it's about coalition building and all this stuff. But there's something about being Catholic where you're just like, I want to love the Holy Father. Like with all my heart, I want to love the Holy Father. And I think every Catholic has that instinct. So probably would have been wise to just chill out a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
Instead of rushing on to be the first one on. So I'm going to actually just apologize. Not because of what I said was wrong, but because I didn't even give the new Pope a chance. And what would it be? It's not because it wasn't calumny, because none of it was untrue. But is it detraction where you're just sullying the person's name?
It could be a bit.
Could be scandal.
It could be some. It could be some. Maybe just some rash judgment and some scandal. Because it's like, if it's like impromptu, if the passions are flowing and you're just trying to be the first one on, it can be a little bit a little spotty.
So it's not okay. So what I'm saying is, I still think it was smart to do. It was still smart to get the information out there because this is all true. All this stuff. I'm getting texted.
I just wanted to stop and say,
yeah, all right, go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm gonna catch crap on this. I took 100 phone calls today about this stuff, and it's like, what is the position you want to take going into this thing? I don't think anything we said was wrong yesterday. I think everything we said was true, like literally everything. We know where this guy came from. But I still want to love the Holy Father, and it's just a Catholic instinct.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do about it. Like, I said right from the bat, I don't ever want to be like opposition to the Pope on our channel. So it's yeah, I don't know, man. It is kind of interesting to watch everybody just going, all right, we're gonna what Tim's texting me. What I don't you want to come on? It's not that it's that I don't want to be the one riling up people to anger against the Pope.
No, I mean, here's my take about it. First, let me just say this. I've never, like, actually, as a practicing Catholic, got to see white smoke go off. So that just feeling of watching it live and finally seeing the white smoke go off, that was just another level of, I think, like, Catholic joy that's kind of unique. You know what I'm saying?
That was your first conclave. All right, listen,
Yeah.
I gotta let Tim come on because he was on with us yesterday. So I'm gonna send Tim the link. Because I want to hash this out with him on air. So I don't know if you want to stay. I think you can. I mean, I don't want to make you feel like you can't.
I mean,
stick around. Stick around.
I'm probably only going to give positive things to say.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand that. But I want Tim to come on because I don't want it to be me backpedaling and stuff. But I want to actually talk about this honestly. So I sent Tim the link. Let's see him pop on. I'm not Pope-splaining. Are you guys kidding me? All right, here's Tim. Tim texts me, this is the gayest thing you've ever said. All right, I'm trying to figure this out, Tim, because me and you talked earlier, and I said straight out to you, I'm like, I don't know, something just feels wrong about, like, just not loving the Pope. So I don't know. What is your take on this?
I just want to know one false thing you said, or you said you didn't give the Pope a chance. I was on with you. And we were both like, bro, I hope he's good. I hope he's good. All indications are he's not good. And I just think
I agree with that.
Well, but this is when people get carried away. This is what Aristotle calls a few and a many problem. The many want palliative cliches, or they want, which can take the form of being positive. Palliative cliches, often in trad world, can take the form of negative statements. That's my thing on my channel, is always just truth, straight line to truth.
But what about the because they were always accusing us of violating that canon law where we're like riling up opposition to our bishop or something. Like I was like canon 13 or something. They were like, you always heard Lofton accusing us of that and stuff like that. I don't know exactly which one it is, but it's like if we're coming out, because it was very raw yesterday, and I think we were like, holy crap, man, this thing is going bad. And they got their guy. Like, I still think all that. They got their guy. So
yeah. you're not schizophrenic. I mean, yeah, it's just a fact. We found out what I likened to it on my show. What I likened it to on my show today is the difference between evidentiary and dispositive in law. So some evidence is merely evidentiary. You're building a case slowly. And then some evidence comes over the top and it's just dispositive, a smoking gun all at once. If I left my house and I can't remember if I left a faucet running and I'm freaked out and I've been gone for 8 hours. Oh no, is the faucet running? And I'm rounding the bend. I literally have to round a corner to come back to my house. This is typically how it works at law. The more approximate, less precise evidence is what you tend to get first. So like you round the corner of your house and you're literally just looking at the front door for evidence of the worst thing, like is water pouring out my front door? Did I ruin my gem? And you don't see that at first, but that's not dispositive. Then you go in the house and you're like, okay, it was an upstairs faucet. I don't see water down here. That's pretty good. That's a little better. Now I'm mounting the steps. Now I'm getting closer to the thing. I don't hear the faucet on. That's getting to be better and better non-dispositive evidence until you go in there and you look at the faucet you thought you left on, and then it's dispositive. That's all that was happening yesterday.
Yeah, we're looking at things as we're coming up on the main event. We're saying, okay, this is the stuff you're looking for. Like you're looking to see if the kitchen's flooded first. You're looking to see if it's pouring out the front door. So I don't think I still think it was important to get that stuff out to give people a reasonable expectation of what's to come. Like I really think because hopium, like you said yesterday, cope springs eternal. Like hopium is a powerful drug, man. And when I'm watching it online today, I'm watching everybody just like, it's a very strange thing to watch everybody just go, all right, we're behind this Pope. And we don't know anything about him yet. So I didn't make any kind of statements like that. I was just like, all right, let's just like, I had no problem saying what I said about Cardinal Robert Prevost, but there's something about when the Cardinal becomes the Pope, he becomes a new man. And I want to give the Pope, who has not done anything at this point, the chance to at least be a Pope and prove himself as a Pope.
Well, no, he doesn't become a new man. He's literally he's now Pope. He has a new office. He quite literally, in all relatable senses, doesn't become a new man. He's only been Pope for a day, and so we're going to wait and see. There's no dispositive evidence, and so I still hope against hope, cope against cope, that he'll be the best Pope ever. I hope he becomes
the royal we, though. Like he does become something new. He's no longer I, but we. So like when a Pope releases a statement, he says, we declare. It's like he's speaking on behalf of Christ himself at that point as well.
Sorry, I'm just an Aristotelian, and we're going to go through the De Anima, and as anthropologically, he still has the exact same will, the same intellect, the same rules of the Holy Spirit, promising never to overwhelm our intellect or our will. Abide, they obtain, and so there's no guarantee that any one Pope will not be a bad man. And he is same. And the fact of the matter is he's lived 69 years, and there are a lot of indicators on this guy. His big two Cardinal Kingmakers were Supich and Maradiaga. That's a big tell. That's not dispositive. It's very evidentiary. These guys do not make mistakes. Maradiaga was the Pope Francis Kingmaker. Who were his non-cardinal pushers? James Martin and the nuncio, the currently very left nuncio, and then Austin Ivory. So those five. I make no apology for anything I said yesterday, which was solely reducible to this is really bad.
I'm not sorry for saying what we said because it was untrue. I felt it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. It's more like I had like this weird guilty feeling.
That's called the mob. That's called the mob. Nobody
was saying anything. We got off the show and I went to bed. Like I felt this over, and then I woke up at 3 a.m.
Last night, Brian Holdsworth, even Eric Sammons, these guys are virtue signaling more than a air traffic controller, man.
Here's the thing. When
it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
When I watched Eric Sammons, Kennedy, and Flanders, like I did feel like they weren't being honest. And I love those guys. I'm not knocking them. Like it felt like dishonest in a way. It's and there was even today seeing certain guys coming out and saying things, and I'm like, you guys are laying it on pretty thick, man. It's like, can we?
Yep.
I understand cautious optimism, but it really is like the mimetic desire, right? Like you don't want to be the one person alone going against the crowd.
That's it.
But I still want to love the Holy Father. Like I don't know what the proper, like I'm struggling through to figure out what the right thing to do is here, because like I want to be a good cat. Like in a just world, the right thing to do is love the Holy Father and not speak ill of him. But we've been through 12 years of just, we all, like, I think Steph tweeted it from your account, just say, like, we all have post-traumatic stress disorder from 12 years of just being beaten over the head.
Right.
So it's like your instinct is to stay in that mode, but should we take a lighter stance on this? I don't know.
In a just world, there's one thing that matters, and it's the truth. And the truth is a person, and we never have to negotiate. If you say, I want to do truth plus I want to lay it on a little thick, that's called lying. That's optimism. And it's also inaccuracy. If you go the other side and you go, I want to do, which everyone was accusing me of on Twitter, I don't appreciate it very much. I want to do truth minus. I want to leave off some palliative true facts about this guy. That's lying. That's inaccuracy. I want the exact truth as this iceberg is becoming clearer and clearer. And guess what, Anthony? This pontificate should not take 3, 4, 5, 6 years to start deciphering whether it's good or not. I give him a week, maybe a couple weeks, but there is one clear litmus test for him.
Yeah, I thought this
and
was
it
brilliant.
is Amoris Laetitia. It is. So we have Jesus versus Pope Francis, because remember, Pope Francis was not able, because of the Americans, which is why this guy got elected, the right-wing Americans. Francis never knew how to deal with the pushback. It was slower than he and McCarrick and the mysterious Italian gentleman thought he would be able to proceed with those 4 Gaulen agenda items. He got to one of them. He couldn't ever get to 2, 3, or 4. And the one item was Amoris Laetitia, chapter 8, together with the response to the Argentine bishops in September of 2016. You have the only correct interpretation. What was that correct interpretation? I, Pope Francis, am right. Remarriage after divorce is not adultery. Jesus is wrong. That's the proposition it stands for, very directly, very linearly. Unless, I don't care how nice this Pope is, I don't care how much gold he has on his ring or any of that stuff. That's all. I was talking about this with another friend. I won't name who it is. That's called trading. I want the Latin Mass, but I don't want the Latin Mass traded for homo stuff. I don't want the Latin Mass traded
of course
for
not.
Amoris Laetitia being here to stay. That's the litmus test. And if he's a good guy, it'll be within the first month. He has to tend to it. If not, he's a bad guy. It's that simple.
Okay, so you're a moral foundation and truth guy before a practice. So like your thing are those, which we all should be. Like obviously, like where I would say those gestures of at least signaling, like gestures of goodwill, shouldn't we respond with goodwill? In the beginning, I think a big thing is he should respond to the dubia right off the bat, because that would clear everything up, right? It's
because it can't be faked or traded.
Yeah.
Can him
yes or no?
What?
The dubia questions are yes or no.
They're yes or no, but he wouldn't fake or trade upon them, because that stands for the entire proposition of him being a good guy. Will you undo what needs to be undone about Francis? Can he chant a few things in Latin? Because the Gaulen guys are like, these American trads are idiots. Say a couple sentences in Latin and they will worship you.
Yeah.
Yes, because of post-traumatic stress disorder. Yes. Okay. So he can give that without giving up any of the ghost, man. And that's why that's not the litmus test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So your thing is just the main thing with Francis. So it's like he has to go back to that. But I mean, there are so many of those things that need to be corrected that you could even go back. Like,
there's really only one. There's
Well,
only
Amoris
one that
Laetitia
throws
is
our
actually-
church into a constitutional crisis, and it's Amoris Laetitia, chapter 8. That's the
Okay,
only one that really throws our church into a constitutional crisis. And conveniently, it's the only Gaulian agenda item that Francis actually got to because he had to go so slow. So it's a tell praxeologically, the latter point, and it's a tell, and it's just most important constitutionally as a kind of first thing. You got first thing and second thing there. That's why it's the ultimate tell. And I will call this guy the best pope ever if he comes out and does it. I just think because, like you said, Anthony, people are being mimetically dishonest today. They are mimetically lying. They know he's not. They know.
Okay, no.
I don't know. They know he's probably not going to do that. He's probably Maradiaga's man.
All right, I'll tell you what I think is actually happening. I don't think it's even mimetic desire. I think that trads understand part of the reason Traditionis came down was because of the opposition, and we all gravitated towards the Latin Mass, right? So if we're still the opposition, like we're hoping for those gestures, and then we want to see it continue on and then go into some of the major problems in the doctrinal issues with Francis. But we would like to at least not be seen as the opposition from the jump to this guy, because then you're like, you're setting yourself up to challenge the Pope from day one, saying he's the pick of the St. Gallen Mafia and things like that, which I don't even deny, but I also don't want to be the reason that there aren't those gestures given, and that maybe there can be some goodwill between the parties. Like if we're setting ourselves up as the proponents to the papacy right from the get-go.
That's just such, honestly, convolution. Anytime we're talking and someone starts saying, well, this might be true, but what if it's seen this way? Then you kind of have to go into subjuncted reality and, well, it's true, but it's seen this way. I don't know how to reason like that. I don't reason like that.
Just think about what I'm saying. I'm saying it's like we start this papacy off and we're already going at the guy for things he did before he even became Pope. Like I don't see how any groundwork gets laid for anything if we are already in that position. That's all I'm saying. Like I think like what we did yesterday, it's like, okay, this is the guy they gave us. He was their choice. He is this, like every single thing you talked about leading up to that conclave was true. Like not even specifically about him, just what they were going to do. There is the clues of the brother giving the interview saying that he knew he was going to be the pick a day after Francis passed. We do know that he was Austin Ivory's guy and Father James Martin's guy. We know all of this. So we know who the guy is. We get that information out, but I think there has to be some kind of all right, we're going to back off. We're going to accept you as Pope. Are you going to be the St. Gallen guy, or are you going to start going in and correcting some of these errors?
Okay. But so that's why the epistemic ground for this conversation needs to center around, you said you think he becomes a new man when he's Pope. I say he's the same man. He literally, the strongest left position he has, aside from the fact he's very anti-death penalty, is the 2014 Family Synod had this argument that broke out in one of the Circoli Minori. I don't know if you remember this, but it was, if we do an eventual Amoris Laetitia, this is what the Africans like Sarah were saying. You're talking about doctrinal authority to local or national bishops' conferences on natural law questions? And Cardinal Kasper goes, yes. And Pope Francis ended up saying yes. So in other words, 2 and 2 is 4 in Poland. If you cross the border into Germany, 2 and 2 equals 5. And the Africans and some of the Asians shut it down until Amoris Laetitia. This current new Pope has weighed in very strongly on said question. He said doctrinal authority needs to adhere in the local bishops. This is synodality. This is the strongest left position he has, and it's the most important one. And he weighed in on fiducia supplicans, but it applies across all. I'm a moral philosopher. I'm working on a doctorate in action theory. This is catastrophe at the highest level. If 2 and 2 cannot be 4 in Poland and 2 and 2 be 5 in Germany, nor can something constitute murder in Poland but not murder in God's eyes in Germany. And this was the most toxic poison of Francis. And you know who said so? Benedict. It's the worst poison in the world. It's relativism. And this Prevost strongly everywhere in multiple documents has said, this is what I believe. And also, he's the prefect for the dicastery of bishops who made an enemy out of the only bishops in the USCCB who had my position. No, 2 and 2, 4 everywhere. Yeah. And he's the guy that got him. So he's the hitman. Sorry, man. He's not a new man. Now, maybe a miracle can happen and he can turn over a new leaf. New leaf, possible. New man, that's fairy tale stuff.
Yeah, I'm not saying new man in that respect. I'm saying with the office comes grace. And because we've seen this before where they think they elected a liberal and then what winds up happening is the guy becomes the most I think it was Pius IX they elected thinking he was a progressive, and he comes in and he winds up being like the most based pope ever. I'm not saying that's going to happen
at first for a few years, and then he became really based. But that can happen. He wasn't a defender of heresy, though. That's the difference. Nick, do you have thoughts, or like what's your view on all this?
Essentially, my view is one of optimism, mostly just because while I understand the rational critique of the current Holy Father, the concerns about previous statements that he has made, I do believe that the Holy Ghost is powerful and good enough that if it so be in his will for him to grace us with a pope that can do a lot of good and a lot of change, then that will be what happens. And I think it's the Christian thing to do, ultimately, to do two things. One is, again, like we have a mixed bag kind of before us of statements. I think it's the Christian thing to do to, number one, presume the best, right? Just presume the best as much as possible, because that's what we would honestly want to have done to us. But then the second thing would be that we would, I would say, do a better, this is mostly directed at me, but this could be applicable to other people out there. Also, spend a lot more time in prayer and contemplation for the Holy Father, so that he would hopefully, cooperate with the graces that would be set before him when it comes to his office that's now he's entasked with. So essentially, that's my position. It's one of, there is a myriad of people who are giving various opinions on all of these things. And at the moment, it's like, well, we have kind of a myriad of data. Let's kind of wait and see. Let's hope for the best, right? I think expecting the worst, ultimately, while we can, on the one hand, you don't want to fall into a sense of like a false hope. I do think that you also need to, at the same time, recognize that things could be turned out very, very differently than potentially we might expect. So I have a more optimistic view whenever it comes to it all, because ultimately I think that that's a more healthy approach to take. It's not denying any issues, right? I want to be clear with that. It's not denying potential any issues, but at the same time, I do think that when one has to give as much of the benefit of the doubt as possible.
Where do you think you're differentiating from me? I don't know how much, I don't know your position until I just asked. I don't know what you're characterizing as mine. So when you say pray more, what if I said, I just spent 23.5 hours praying? But no, I'm not saying I did, but let's hypothetical this. Someone that prayed for him 23 hours yesterday needs to pray more? Or are you saying alternatively, someone that prayed for him 23 hours, couldn't come away with the position like, oh no, this looks really bad?
Yeah, sure. I think one could come away with a position of, if you already prayed a ton, and walk away saying, oh, this looks bad. But at the same time, I would say, really, regardless, it doesn't matter how much you pray or whatever your thoughts are, you're tasked to pray. And so that's what would be my basic answer.
No, all right, but that's not the point. Look, we're trying to figure out the proper position in this, right? And I think Nick has one argument, and Nick, your disposition is you just don't want to. I'm pretty sure you just don't want to add to any of the drama in this. Like you're thinking more along the lines of you'll be held to account for every idle word, and you want to make sure that your words are very precise and stuff. But Tim is getting to a point of truth, and it's like I'm trying to figure out what the proper way to handle this is like I never want to lie. This is why I'm glad I brought Tim on, because like I fall into mimetic desire very easily. Like I want to it's not that I want to go along with the crowd, it's that I don't want to have the wrong position on this. So I don't want to be a coward, like I'm afraid to say what needs to be said, but at the same time I'm trying to figure out at what point does saying what needs to be said become detraction against the Pope, because we're Catholic and there's like, you're not supposed to rile up, you know, like you're not supposed to rile up opposition to the Pope. So I don't know. I don't know.
That's the first important point that I was going to make to Nick was I think you're both operating on a misdefinition of detraction. So it's impossible. There are two types of gossip, right? For people out there, there's calumny. If you're speaking false things, that's always mortal. No one's doing that yesterday, even the most shrill. I don't know who the shrillest person on the other end of the spectrum would be. Certainly wasn't me, but someone being more shrill wasn't even doing calumny because they weren't lying. Detraction now, and so I think you're both mistaking.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm getting the definition of detraction.
Detraction is when you reveal true private facts publicly. So it's not, you're not lying if you commit detraction, and usually it's venial, but you are revealing true facts, which is what you guys are pointing at, but they're private facts publicly. It's impossible to commit detraction when you're dealing with something, when someone has already said something publicly, particularly someone has already scandalized themselves publicly. So the Catechism is very clear about this, both Trent and 1993. The only cure to public scandal is a public repudiation, either by self or others. So unfortunately, Prevost has already committed himself to a fair amount of scandal, right? By saying that the death penalty is wrong in and of itself, by saying most of all that the doctrinal authority of the bishops is essentially a walking relativism, and this is a strong position he has, which brings me to the second point. So the only cure to this, it's not actually detraction; it would just be speaking publicly about public facts. And what he said about the doctrinal authority of bishops is not a mixed bag. It's very clear, and he's written it and he's spoken it very frequently, and it's the worst part, and it needs to be clarified.
Is Father Nick's in the chat? Is that why people are saying bring Father Nick's on? I didn't say it.
I don't know. I'm aware of what the definition of detraction is. My whole point is more so you can speak the things that are true, and you can do so in a manner in which ultimately is not helpful for the souls that are out there. So what I mean by that is that on the one hand, yes, you can speak something that's true, and maybe your intention is good with it, right? The intention is to speak truth and to call out that which is evil, right? That's fine. But if the intention behind it, let's say it is good, right? But the effect of it is really, really negative, especially in a context in which it's like, okay, my mustache is older than his pontificate. You know, it's like we're kind of just starting off here. I'm afraid your mustache is going to wind up being nicer than his pontificate. I hope not, but it's like because I can barely grow one. But it's more like
it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
Let the guy, you know, let's give the guy some time. You know, because I mean, here's the thing that I see.
All anyone's saying is let's give him time, but it looks bad, and that
Sure,
you're not going to get that because go ahead.
I think you can rightly say, like, there's, as I've said before, there are issues, right, that can be very concerning. But my issue more so is that when you run into a lot of the individuals who do spend a lot of chronic time here online, it's very easy for people to doom pill super, super quick.
Yeah.
And my point is, it's like
Can we have a hard example of someone that, because everyone's out there finger wagging today and no one's saying what they're finger wagging. Like, give us the platonic form of someone that needs to be finger wagged at about this.
I'll just say this. I think that
you're shadow boxing if not.
Well, yeah. Well, first off, I'm a high school dropout, and you're using words that I'm going to have a hard time keeping up with here. But I know
yourself, Anthony. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, you did not say anything wrong when I was on with you.
Yeah. Well, no, this is why I'm glad I brought you on. Like, I want to be held accountable, especially by somebody like you, because like I never want to be a coward. I'm trying to find the right position here because I don't want to rile up. Like I don't want to go into this pontificate judging Pope Leo on Prevost, but he is the same person, like you're saying. I think what we did yesterday was totally understandable, especially after the Francis pontificate. The information absolutely is public, and I think it was the reason we did it was to give people like a reasonable expectation for this pontificate. Like, guys, this is the guy we're dealing with. Like, be reasonable. So when I'm seeing everybody going, I give my undying loyalty to the Pope, it's like, whoa, like you guys, I was watching live streams yesterday and I was watching everybody's face drop, and everybody's reaction in the moment was, holy crap, we're in trouble. Now we came on air and we voiced it for 2.5 hours. And then we did get the finger wagging from Brian Holdsworth and Eric Sammons and those. I don't know if anybody was, I didn't hear Brian's, but I think everybody was like, guys, can you just chill out and give the guy a minute? And I'm trying to be open to fraternal correction and say, okay, wait, maybe I should give the guy a minute and let him come in. Maybe he will answer the dubia. But in the meantime, he is bringing a little bit of dignity back to the papal office, which we haven't seen in 12 years. Like, I know to you, Tim, it's like, oh, cool. He put some dressing on the thing, but there is something.
I'm a trad that way. I like it. I'm just saying it's too easy to trade upon. And I called it before he even did any of it. I'm like,
yeah. No, I know we talked about it yesterday.
Well, yeah, I was saying it the day before. Okay, what they might get is a guy that's like, all right, I'll say a few extra things in Latin. Let's have some homo stuff legalized. Let's keep Amoris Laetitia on the books. We can't have that. But all I'm saying is that's very clear. So we've established, Nick, Anthony, Tim, this wasn't detraction. Language is inherently good. It's a conditional good. It's inherently good if it doesn't run into any of the vices following upon the first principle of practical reason. So when you're saying true things, unless it's detraction or, one of the other, or gossip, it can be a truish gossip between detraction and calumny. And there are a few other pitfalls to avoid. We avoided all of them. Why is it wrong to judge a congressman by his record, or a man by his public record, or a bishop who has committed scandal, and say, I hope he does basically become a new man, however unlikely? That's all I said. That's all you said.
No. And okay, so, but so I have no issue with what we did yesterday in bringing public information to light. But when I woke up this morning, you did the same thing. You said, I am praying for Pope Leo XIV, right? Like
I said it yesterday. I said it yesterday.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was this morning or yesterday. It's like,
I prayed for Pope Francis. Now that just shows you how out there I am on the prayer wagon. Well,
you see what my point is, though, right? It's like, he is making these symbolic gestures of goodwill and bringing a bit of a dignity back to the papal office, which was one of our biggest criticisms, to be fair. Like, it was like one of the biggest things was Francis he put this false humility forward and acted like, oh, I'm going to wear the simple white cassock because that's the humble thing. I'm going to go pay my bill myself at the hotel room. I'm not going to live in the apostolic palace. All these for show gestures that weren't actual humility. They were false humility. So this Pope comes back in and he doesn't do any of that nonsense. And he brings back, not just that, he comes out with the crozier that's like Pope Pius IX's crozier. It's like, there's things he's doing to signal to us this is not going to be the same as the past 12 years.
But you have to just on this think in dichotomous terms. It's either A or B. Given that we know it's not gossip, we know at least two of the worst cardinals, probably the two worst cardinals, aside from maybe Casper and the surviving Gallen guys, Supich, who he is very close with, and Maradiaga, the Francis Kingmaker. They like him. So that throws us into this A or B situation, knowing that. And then you pepper in the other guys. Worrell looked pleased as punch. Yeah. And Ivory.
I'm not naive. I know.
It's either A or B. It's either, okay, so he's coming in and the presumption now throws us to the default position. It's in law, it's called a rebuttable presumption. Given that, the most important fact we know about him, bar none, who elected him? Whose man are you, as Bill Cutting says, right? Whose man are you? Everyone's someone's man when they're voted in. Whose man are you? Okay, so we know. So the rebuttable presumption is now he's Gallen's man. And that's not, it's not a non-rebuttable presumption. So it's either A, that he's going to come in, and what would he do if he is the Gallon man? He would be a much shrewder than Francis. He would make overtures. You combine it with, why did we get a North American Pope that supposedly likes the Latin Mass? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, of course, on situation A, if he's a Gallon man, I'm not sure, though that's, for me, the rebuttable presumption. I think it's hard to say otherwise, given who gave us him. This is precisely how he would act. But I'm not saying I know that yet. That would be potentially rash judgment. Or B, that's all just a bunch of unlikely coincidence, perfect storm, and he's really the world's best pope, and he's going to get rid of Amoris Laetitia in a week. Then I still will have nothing to apologize for. I'll just be like, dude, you had the look of a murderer, bro, but I am so thrilled.
I don't think you owe an apology, though. I think even the news reports that came out today, where it's like Dolan was the kingmaker behind the scenes, like, I think that's all propaganda they're giving us to make us think something happened that didn't actually happen. Like, I am not naive to what we are dealing with. That's not my point. I still think what we said yesterday was 100% true. My point is, from here forward, what is the position I want to take from here, and give him that leeway of time to show either this is, you know, he took the name Leo, but is he really Francis at heart? Like, I want to give the man some space, and I also don't want to come out bashing him and ruin the gestures he's giving by giving him the middle finger, and then he says, okay, well, you know what, maybe Francis was right to punish you assholes.
I wasn't on the whole show. I did not give him the middle finger. I don't advise giving the Pontifex Maximus the middle finger. I didn't do that any yesterday. People were saying it's the equivalent of the middle finger to say, here's 5 statements where he said doctrinal authority, relativistic doctrinal authority, should be given to local bishops. That's material heresy. I really hope that he rethinks this. That's not the middle finger. And further to that, I would just say, yesterday, all day long, I probably said it 24 times. We have to wait and see, because the question is always, or what else could we do about it anyway? Which kind of Nick said. We have to wait and see, but I'm just saying the rebuttable presumption going forward is he is the Gallon candidate ostensibly now, because unless you just say Supich and Maradiaga and probably
I'm not saying any of that.
Yeah,
I'm still saying he is the Holy Father, though, right? So it's like, there's a certain
there's always the default position. That's all I'm saying.
I get that. I just think that with, like, the office is owed dignity. So I had no problem with what we said yesterday, but my position today was going to be, come on, and I'm gonna take a step back, and I want to give this man some room to breathe and see what he wants. Because even if he is the St. Gallen candidate, he's still the freaking Pope, and he could go, I don't care what anybody, I owe nobody anything. I'm the Pope. In reality,
he owes our Lord Jesus Christ everything.
Well, that's it, right? So he could come in and go, I don't care what.
Yeah, he owes more than you and I owe. It's heavy as the head that wears the crown. So he owes much, much more than you. Remember, all of Jesus's passages on. See, this is that Protestant thing where I start going, I think Catholics have bought the Protestant lies about the Pope, that he is actually, we're worshipful of him. The Pope is beware being a stumbling block. Heavier is the head. When you're in charge, everything's your fault. So the Pope is not some guy we worship. That's what Protestants have lied about us for the last 500 years. He owes more than I owe or you owe. He gets more credit and more blame together. It's not all of the credit, none of the blame. And Jesus, our Lord, directly said this to his apostles when he was giving them the keys. He's like, if you become a stumbling block, you're going to be way more punished than ordinary guys like Anthony or Tim or Nick. We have to reconfigure. That's
all right, but that's fine. But like what we did yesterday, we did. So what's the like you? So you were going to come on today, and it's like, do we want to just keep releasing all that? It's like, we know who the guy, where he came from, we know who he is. What is the position to go from here? Do we give this guy some room and let him be the Pope? Because part of it is also not just the Pope. It's the disunity between Christian brothers also. Like there's something to seeing brothers at peace that I do love the idea of, because we're supposed to rally around our Holy Father, and we're supposed to have the Father be good to his children, and we haven't had that for 12 years. I'm tired, maybe it's a bit of exhaustion from that and missing just being able to just go, hey, you're my brother in Christ. I don't know, man. I'm genuinely looking for the right position from this point forward, not from yesterday. I did what I did yesterday because it needed to be said. You and I knew what was coming in the lead up to this. We talked about it the day of, but now this is 24 hours in. He's made a few gestures towards us, and it's like, all right, from here, I want to see what the guy does. And then even beyond that, like, what, I don't know what is, like, I don't know if I have it in me to be that guy again. Against, like, I don't know, man. The freaking past couple of years were exhausting. Just being angry. Like, I want to love the Holy Father, dude. I think we all just miss being Catholic and loving the Pope. So I don't know.
Of course, but what we miss and love about him is that he's the visible sign of unity on earth. He is the sign of unity in Christendom on earth. And Pope Francis was not. He was a sign of division. It's victim blaming. And it's, what did you say yesterday? Stockholm syndrome. I take no blame for that. Look, I got 1,000 problems. I got 1,000 faults. That's not one of them. I did not sow discord under Pope Francis. He did. And 100%. And this guy, his own brother, said he's not going to be differentiable from Francis. I played that clip on my show now. Mm-hmm. He was made by Francis, the prefect for the dicastery of bishops. He was sowing discord among, in my view, and I think yours, the bad bishops elevated to be good insofar as they kept their seat. And the holiest American bishop I could think of was Strickland. Yeah. And this guy put him down. So it seems like we're still in subversive world where the Pope is not the visible sign of unity. If the Pope were going to be the visible sign of unity, I think that might be a second litmus test, though it's not as clear.
Yeah, John Henry Weston said the litmus test is what he does with Strickland. I don't think it is. I think it's definitely the dubia. And I don't know if that means that Burke has to resubmit dubia to clarify Amoris, but I do think, like you said, like, we're going to get some, okay, cool, you're going to get your Latin Mass back. But if we just pretend the Francis pontificate, like, if we just, because I talked to somebody today in more of the mainstream world, and they were like, what if Leo just wants to, like, kind of move forward and he doesn't want to, but it's like, there are too many errors that have to be corrected. I just want to give the guy enough time to correct them.
But that's all I was saying yesterday. And I listened to a couple of the things you said, and I was like nodding, and then you apologized for what you said yesterday. And I'm like, you have to find a fault to apologize. You can't explicate a false logoi. What did you say yesterday that was wrong? I heard nothing when I was with you. So it's dangerous to backtrack and not know what you're backtracking, and that's just where everyone seems to be now. Someone on my stream, I think you'll agree with everything I said on my stream, by the way. Someone on my stream said Taylor took down his video. Maybe it was for some.
I didn't take mine. Yeah, I wasn't going to take mine down. I want it up for posterity's sake because I do think this guy's going to let us down, and I want to be able to go, look, we left it up, because there is a pressure to not be the guy that spoke out against the Pope. But it's like, we did our show. I'm leaving that freaking thing up, because when it comes time, and I do think that's going to happen, I hate to say it, but I mean, I don't think we're crazy for the things that we brought up yesterday to assume the things we assumed. But I do think there is a little bit of presumption there. You know, it's not crazy, but there is presumption there. And I do want to give this guy enough space.
Positive evidence. It's just non-dispositive evidence. Like, if the police pull over a guy that looks like a murder suspect, that's real evidence, even if he's not the guy. It's just non-dispositive. And then if they look down, and in between kind of his knees in the car, he's holding a knife. That's more evidence. Still not dispositive. Let's pretend he just is a guy that looks like the murderer in a similar part of town, and he's holding a kitchen knife, and he just bought that kitchen knife. Maybe it's a Slasher Deluxe, and he just purchased. It's mounting evidence, but what I think a lot of normies don't understand, normie trads, normie whatever, seculars, normie Novus Ordo, is it's real evidence, even up until the fact that it becomes dispositive. And there's a lot of negative real evidence against this guy. The only bit of countervailing real evidence for hope I've seen is not the fact that he said like, "Hi, what's up, guys?" in Latin. It's that on April 30th. So this proves my objectivity. This is the only thing that made me say, "Oh wow, maybe, just maybe." On April 30th, he was at Burke's apartment, top secret summit. He was at Burke's apartment. That's and most people have missed that. I only found that this morning. Maybe you sent it to me or something. That is a real sign of hope. Now it's still 90-10, but if we get another real one, not that he said what's up in Latin, then I'll go, oh, it's 80-20. And then eventually, maybe it'll turn out, hopefully it'll be within a month, he undoes the dubia, and then I'll say, that's why he was meeting with Burke. That's why Burke had that other nice message the day after. I mean, like, I hope for it, man. I pray for it.
Yeah. So what is going to be your approach going forward? Are you just not going to, I mean, obviously there's going to be things in the news. Like, how are you going to handle this going forward?
Just same as always, just true. Just, whatever happens, that's true. That's already of public record. Assess it with as much of my, trained in philosophy, trained in the law, cause-based approach. When you use causation as your guide, causation as the, formal cause and truth is the final cause, you're not going to go wrong. You might get the wrong answer, but you're not going to go wildly astray. So it's just like, hey, every day we pray for this guy. It should be reasonably soon. One thing I'll tie myself to this mast. The litmus test is undoing chapter 8 of Amoris Laetitia and taking that Argentine letter out of the Acta Apostolica Sedis and tearing it up and saying, sorry, I choose Jesus over Francis. He's going to have to do that, and he'll have to do it swiftly. So I hadn't thought of this yesterday, but the one area our analysis was wrong, you and I were saying, oh no, 2 to 4 more years of the mimetic, phony, pretending Francis is good when it was clear he was bad right away. I just don't want to deal with that. We won't have to, because if he hasn't done the litmus test within, it's bad.
I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to, though. I think for the same reason, for mimetic desire on his part, because you saw right from the beginning, he comes out on the loggia and right away it's Francis, synodality. Like I don't think we're going to get the corrections, but I do think we're going to get some gestures like you said. Now, the difference I'll take from you about the liturgy stuff is that I really do believe lex orandi, lex credendi. And I think if he gives Traditionis back, you may not make progress during his pontificate with the things you're discussing, but it's going to form people, because the doctrine in that mass, if you're actually soaked in it, is going to form people to be deepened in their faith. And then maybe you get some movement in the next generation or something. Like, I don't know. I think those gestures could be helpful in the battle, and I don't think we should just mock them when they come our way.
Well, we haven't had any yet. Real ones, like the undoing of Traditionis Custodes, as long as it's not a trade. Do you acknowledge that it could be a trade, though? I mean, this is something that George Farmer said to me, and I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I said yesterday. He's like, I don't want the Latin Mass as part of some trade for doctrine. Doctrine always trumps discipline. The discipline.
100%.
I want Traditionis gone. I want the Novus Ordo gone. I mean, that would be based. I don't think we're going to get either of those. But if we get Traditionis gone, I'm worried it's a trade. And you can never trump the standing, festering canker on the heart that is, we have right now. When Protestants say, "Oh, why are you Catholic?" and you say, "Well, because we've never had habitual error taught by popes." If 2 popes allow this heresy to stand now in the Actae Apostolica Sedis, we can no longer say that. So there's nothing that's a close second to. There is heresy in the Dispositive faith right now. It's not been habitually taught yet. He has to get rid of it, or else he's the Gallon candidate. It's so that.
What if you, because I don't think you're going to get the dubia answer, but what if a future document comes out clarifying something, right? So
undoing. Remember,
undoing.
Most dubia are submitted to the CDF, and any pope can answer them. They can be addressed to popes too, but they're usually addressed to the CDF.
CDF, yeah.
So Any pope can answer him, but he needs to clarify. Okay, fine. I don't care if it's a resubmission or a do. I don't care about the boring procedural details. He has to undo that. He's got to yank that out of the AAS. That's all. That's the worst thing that we have as Catholics, and it could theoretically it could destroy the faith. Right? We don't have a non-falsifiable position. I mean, same thing as when I debate atheists. I say, they're like, look, man, you're a smart guy. Why do you buy this myth? Bill Maher was saying it the other day. He's so dumb. I always just say, look, go find a tomb with Jesus of Nazareth's bones in it there, still unresurrected, and I'll grant you, okay, Christianity's false. I don't think you're going to find it, but you have to see that it's not a non-falsifiable proposition. This because you're kind of taking away the non-falsifiability of it, man. He's a good pope that we're all praying for and hoping for, and Eric Sammons and everyone other trad is feeling the shiver up their leg, like Chris Matthews when Obama got elected, because of the what should be a falsifiable proposition that he's a good guy and he will not abide heresy. So it has to be dichotomous that way.
I think everybody's just tired of the fight, and they're just, honestly, I really do. I don't think everybody. I don't think they're that naive. I think they know what they're dealing with, but they're tired of the fight, and they don't want to be seen as the one that's still causing the problems when you have a new pope in. I think everybody's just going, let's do a reset and let's just give this guy some time. That's it. I just think that's generally what it is. I think
lying, which is more than I've actually even done. I don't think that's
a lie. I think everybody's saying let's stop with the hostilities and give the guy some time.
In Thomistic language, that would be a simulation. Like a simulation is an acted out lie. If you're like, because once you move to start psychologizing, assessing their motive, I'm tired too, man. I streamed over 5 hours yesterday. I was incredibly depressed last night. Woke up feeling a little better, and I'm like, I'm tired too. But when people say I'm tired, the way like boomers say it, like too tired to fight, I'm just going to submit, I'm going to say something that's not really fully true, then you're getting into the realm of sort of simulation where you're saying we're going to, Nietzsche would call it dissimulation. And I don't want to accuse these people of dissimulating or lying.
No, I think it's a ceasefire though, Tim. Like you said, we even said the guy is coming here. He's an American. He understands the American media landscape. And I think it's a ceasefire. Like I literally think that's what it is. Everybody's going, okay, ceasefire. I submit to the Roman Pontiff. Let's see what this guy does. I don't see that as a lie. I've said that probably at least not 12 times yesterday and today. I didn't say I'm not going to submit to him. I said that heresy cannot be. You realize this is like the non-falsifiable. This has to be the falsifiable proposition that the Roman Pontiff cannot habitually teach heresy. Okay, so what we actually need is somebody to bring this to our new American Pope who speaks English, and it has to be brought to him again. And we have to it's like we have a list of demands to free the hostages or something. Like this has to be brought to him. Like these are our major concerns. It's not just a matter of giving us our Latin Mass. Like these are the things that we have held under the Francis Pontificate. It wasn't just that he was awful, because I think everybody thought the worst case scenario, you're going to get a moderate who's not going to be as cruel as Francis, which I think is what we're seeing right now. You're getting this moderate looking guy who's he doesn't hate people like Francis had this particular cruelty about him.
You don't really know, but yeah, he's probably less mean because Francis was like the meanest guy ever. So even if Pope is kind of or somewhat mean, like no one's as mean as Francis, like ever. Like so.
Yeah. So.
But we just don't know. I don't want to just start saying he's really nice. I don't know that he's mean. I don't know that he's nice. There's no temperamental indications aside from the fact that he doesn't seem as ostentatious as Francis. But heresy is where we can't negotiate. And when you just say, well, people are tired, there's a ceasefire. I don't disagree with any of that unless you mean, therefore, heresy is going to stand.
No, I don't.
If the heresy stands, then he's bad. It's that simple.
I actually don't even think it's. I don't think it's cowardice. I don't think it's bad. I think it's. I'm almost like, because all of our instinct was to go in and keep pressure on, but I think there's something I think everybody's just going, look, we're not going to start this pontificate off like we left off on the last one. So let's just chill out and just calm down and let the guys in for 24 hours. So let's just back off.
When you say calm, I say calm down to effeminate
Tim,
guys yelling or something. But
but us going on air repeatedly. It's one thing to do the day of, but for us to go on repeatedly day after day and still keep talking about this stuff, like you're
we can talk about it calmly. No, talking about it until the heresy is removed. See, we have to have, but that you said calmly. You also apologized for what you said yesterday. So you're saying you're on both sides of whether or not that was even wrong or right. But
no, I will say definitively, I don't think it was wrong. I think I didn't apologize for what I said. I apologized for my approach, because I think my approach was wrong to go in with that hostile attitude, because I think if I go into this thing aggressive from the jump, I'm setting a tone against the Holy Father that I don't want set, and I don't want to be the one that's the cause of it. I don't want anybody's punishment to continue because I was brash or rash in my judgment and just came out right from the gate, not giving this guy a minute to get his feet on the ground.
I'm sorry, I don't know what approach is, but you didn't say anything when I was with you that I deemed wrong or rash at all. So there's a lot of non-falsifiable propositions, which is what I was seeing on Twitter, where I'm like, you didn't say anything wrong. You were not like, this guy's I'm sure he's going to be bad. This guy's mean. We discussed what he had already done. True, but private, it was, this guy has a really bad record, and all the people who voted for him are the bad guys, which is what we were afraid of. Sorry, not sorry. And so this throws us into an AB scenario, a prime scenario. He's got the look of a bad guy, even if he has golden shoes or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. He has the look of a bad guy. He will maintain the look of a bad guy until he throws the main switch that the bad guys would never want him to throw. And it's needed for the perseverance of the Roman Catholic Church. We can't have heresy on the books. We have it on the books now.
I agree.
It's simple, man. I'm calm. It's really, really important. Things can be important and still be calm about it. I would never yell them down or yell anyone who disagreed with me down. It's just persevering in the truth is what St. Paul says we should do.
I want to run through some of these super chats because I think people got questions. So we'll tell actions speak louder than words. Thank you, Logan. Anthony, the Pope splainer, never thought I'd say it. We need hope, not cope, but I don't want false hope either. Like I don't want, because like I said, the hopium is a hell of a drug, man. I see everybody jumping on board, and it's like they're putting me back into the Cardinal Sarah is going to be Pope kind of hope. And it's just silly. Like, I don't think that. I want to be reasonable. And the conversations I'm having behind the scenes are all like, look, we know who this guy is in his past, but we want to allow for grace to be given to him as he assumes the office. So, I mean, that's kind of how I wanted to come into this today. Let's see. All right. Want to look at a Pope who changed. Look at Pius IX. We talked about that already. Wait and see. Pope Leo will declare Trump Holy Roman Emperor. That's not going to happen. Is it just me? It is lawful and have zero traction right now. Christian Mario. Okay. If James Martin SJ is happy, that's troubling. Absolutely agree. I mean, this is what we talked about yesterday.
So is that like a mean thing to say? Sorry, it's your chat, but is it a mean thing to say this just dichotomy is, true or false? The light switch's got to be on or off. If James Martin is really happy, that's very troubling. Can we just agree on that? Can we just be common sense and no one dissimulate or pretend? That's really super bad, right?
But I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is this, essentially. It's like, why would Rome grant any concessions if we go at him before he's done anything as Pope? Don't ignore it.
Look, if he's a really good Pope, he's not going to not do good things because the good people are a little suspicious. That doesn't make the great saint popes. Pius IX, Pius X, ninth is only beatified. Pius X, they wouldn't have been bad popes just because the good, faithful people were really like, I really expect you to be good. That makes no sense.
It's not that. Propaganda is a powerful tool, right? And all of just like all the mimetic desire towards, okay, get behind the Pope is there. If all the mimetic desire was towards bash this Pope, that propaganda, now you're riling the faithful up to be already at this guy's throat. And I think that's the wrong approach.
Well, I haven't seen anyone bashing him. And we already agreed we weren't doing that. I haven't seen anyone doing it aside from like.
No, I think you're pretty alone in your approach. Like, it's got to be a lonely place to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I was bashing him?
No. I'm saying I'm watching everybody else just kind of go with a new approach to this guy, and you're the one that came out yesterday just stating what you're seeing. I think, like, even you said to me, you were like, it's a very lonely place to be. Like, you were getting a little sad about it, that you felt like out on an island by yourself a bit.
I just get sad how stupid everyone is. That's the honest truth. But no, do you think I was bashing him? Because if so, see, this is where rash judgment gets reversed. Brian Holdsworth sounded like he thought that a lot of people, probably me most, were bashing him. I didn't say one bashful thing. That's not what bashful means. Well, I mean, who's that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to tell you though,
a shadow man or a boogeyman. Who, name one person in the chat? Name one person that was bashing Francis yesterday who's a Catholic, not some douche Protestant.
You have a very particular temperament where, like, I see, very rarely do I see somebody like, you're all freaking what are the 4 temperaments? It's like what are the 4 temperaments?
It's like, I always forget them. There's phlegmatic. You're
not phlegmatic at all.
What's the like mean one? The
sanguine, phlegmatic.
No,
sanguine.
You're not sanguine or phlegmatic. You're the other one.
What's the mean one? Irascible or something?
You're not passive aggressive. You're just aggressive.
Yeah, you're like aggressive, and when you get something, when you feel something, like, you're like, I don't give a crap who agrees with me. I'm going with this. Where I think a lot of people.
Steph says it's just called being. No, but I mean, but that doesn't mean that I was bashing him, right?
I don't think you are. I'm trying to tell you what I think. So a guy like Brian Holdsworth or a guy like Eric Sammons, those guys have more of a phlegmatic temperament. Rob has more of a phlegmatic temperament. They don't like conflict, right? So when they see you even just coming out on day one going, okay, these are problems, they're to them, they're like, ooh, I don't know. I wish, like, it just sounds mean, you know? And I think a lot of people have that. It just sounds
I had people
mean.
accusing me of, remember when he said the Pope, it was in Latin, and I was like looking over here because I don't have a monitor here. He said Cardinal Robert. And I was like, holy cow, everything's going to be all right. I thought it was Robert Serra. Yeah. I had people on Twitter accusing me of like, you just need this for your show. And I'm like, that's so stupid. One, because I hate talking about the Pope. It's the most boring topic, to be honest.
People that say, well, what will you guys talk about? What will you guys talk? It's like, stop it. I'm an entertaining person. I can talk about anything and make the show entertaining. It's ridiculous, but
exactly. No, your show would be good whether it was Pope Serra or Pope Francis II. And I have all these books. I have a movie coming out. Like, this is the stupid Michael Voris, who was by the end of Church Militant was a major Pope splainer, would say that to me. He'd like text me. He's like, what are you going to do when Francis dies? I was like, go to more interesting material. I'm sick of talking about this stuff. And I'm just showing how the nice passive aggressive guys are always the mean guys. The nice guys are always the mean guy. It's that Canadian, whatever.
Yeah, they're bitchy behind the scenes. They don't do it to your face.
No, they do it even right there. They're literally saying like, oh man, they're accusing me in very rash judgment of like something really wicked, which would be hoping that I was so hoping this would be Pope Serra. And you have to basically be saying that guys like me or you were disappointed or were happy it wasn't Pope Serra. And that's
crazy. But you also,
so
they're perceiving it as, you're hoping this guy, because of his past, is like, it's silly. You're right. It doesn't make sense because no, we wanted the greatest Pope ever, and we want this guy to be the greatest Pope ever. But are you setting the expectation or the bar so high that we're not giving the guy enough leeway to even do? I mean, we're 24 hours in. Like,
the only, it's not a high bar that he undoes the clear heresy, which is probably what he met with Burke about. Burke probably said he couldn't make some canvassing deal because that's illegal. It would violate UDG 81. But like, he probably was like, you know what you need to do if you get in. You're gaining traction. Yeah, that's probably what Burke's doing. You're saying one of us needs to do it. I'm sure that's what he's doing. It is lying like an unspotted tumor on the heart of Catholicism, not the Latin Mass stuff. As important as that is, we can't have heresy being habitually taught. It will explode the church. That's literally what we've been telling Protestants for 500 years. It's not too high a bar, bro, to say. It's just I'm not even all in on it. I told you
I wanted to come on today and set a ceasefire. That's it. Just like, I'm not going to, first of all, I don't ever want to be the opposition to the Pope anyway. Like, it's just a weird place to be as a Catholic. But today I was just going to come on and say some nice things about what he's done, just because I want to see where this guy goes. I want to give him some space to do some things. He's in there 24 hours, and I want to allow him to be the Pope. And I know, but it's not going to be a false hope that he's going to be the great rebuilder of the church Pope. But if he can do the couple of things you're talking about, I want to give him some space to do it. And I don't want him to feel like he's already got the American Catholic right media after him, because I think that is a very big part of this equation.
Well, I don't think it's false hope. I think there's all hope, legitimate hope also springs eternal. It's more conditional than cope, which I said springs eternal, but I hope he's the greatest Pope ever. That's not a contrafactual. Like St. Augustine says, you can wish for two parallel lines to meet somewhere in eternity, but you can't hope for it. Sorry, Bishop Barron, hope's got to be rational. It is not yet at that point where it's irrational to hope that he's the best Pope ever. So I guess I'm more hopeful than you. I hope that he is the greatest Pope ever.
This is
it's falsifiable, and we're going to know soon.
I think this is more of a debate between what approach I wanted to take today. That was it. It was like, I just want to have a ceasefire for a while. Like, I don't know. I don't think anything we said yesterday was a lie. I don't think any of it was incorrect. I think we gave people a reasonable presentation of the man that assumed the office of the papacy, and don't set your expectations to be irrational. That's all. Like, don't set your expectations. Don't everybody go and be like, oh my God, he's the most base Pope ever right off the bat within 24 hours, because you see that happening too. I do think it's fun to troll Protestants and say stuff like that. But like, in reality, when you're talking in-house to fellow Catholics, just be reasonable about what we're dealing with here. We have a guy who came in, however he got in, maybe he made maybe he had some conversations with people and said, okay, I'll fix this, this, and this if you guys back my candidacy. And I would like to see those things happen. That's all. Think how far Francis wanted to go. Something held him back from going all the way. I think we have to trust in God. I will judge Leo on what Leo does, not what Prevost did. Pray for a St. Thomas Becket conversion. I think that's where everybody's kind of at right now. I think everybody just kind of wants to see what he does before we're just going off. I don't think it's cowardice either.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's cowardice that everybody's doing this? I don't. I think it really is.
I didn't think it's caritas. I've seen mimetic kinds of. Just typical stupid sort of hoi polloi go along with what the flavor of the day became sometime late last night. There's always a moral cowardice to mimetic desire. Well, it's not a pure desire.
And a financial drive. Like, if you see all the laity are going for it, you don't want to lose 90% of your, like, that's audience capture is involved in this as well. That's a huge danger if you're not saying what needs to be said because you're afraid you're going to turn your audience off. That wasn't my approach.
By cowardice, a kind of cowardice. Yeah.
Yeah, that is 100%. My approach is literally just, I don't want to be the one causing people to have disloyalty to the Pope within 24 hours. Like, we all had like a natural reaction yesterday. It was a freaking a wild day. We all found out in the moment, off guard, because it was the fourth scrutiny, and we were getting information pouring in as it was coming in, and we're like, holy crap, man, what did we get ourselves into? These guys didn't even put up a fight. But the dust settled overnight, and I'm like, all right, I see what he's doing. I know what we talked about yesterday, but like, I want to be Catholic and just freaking like the Pope. Like, I don't want to have
everyone of goodwill does. And that's where you get into the Holdsworth kind of, you're not meaning to do it, but that's where you get into a real dissimulation. Of course, everyone wants him to be good. Every man of goodwill, all three of us here. But when you say, I don't want to cause disloyalty to the Pope by pointing out, that he's a huge supporter of fiducia supplicans, and that he says this natural law issue should be divisible along political boundaries, like I said about Germany and Poland. If I read an article saying that, or I even extrapolate what that means, we got to go through four causes, and people, whatever. People don't want to hear that right now, but it's just a fact that the formal cause of that disloyalty to this Pope, if someone got turned off by hearing that, would not be the reader. That would merely be the efficient cause. The formal cause of someone feeling a sense of disattachment to a Pope that sounds like a moral relativist, particularly on sodomy, that formal cause would not be the reader of the article.
I think that people are seeing these gestures of goodwill, and they want to offer them back and say, okay, we'll chill out, and let's just, I think that's all it is. I that's all it was for me. I don't want to come out here with the same, I hate to say this freaking phrase, with the same hermeneutic of suspicion right off the freaking jump on this Pope. I want to see what he does. Like, give the man some space to do what he's going to do. And I'm not gonna come on every day going, when has he done it yet? Has he done it yet? I want to just give the guy just became Pope, and I want to let him figure out how he wants to do it. I mean, he's already with the curial positions. He's like, I'm gonna leave them in place while I sit back and pray. I don't know. That could be taken one of two ways. Maybe he really does want to sit and pray and put the right people in there, or maybe he's just gonna leave the whole Francis platoon in there to continue operation as usual. I don't know. But if the guy says he's going to sit back and pray about it, I'm going to let him pray about it and see what he does. When he makes those positions official, then it's a different story. So.
Agreed. What I mean, I don't know what Nick thinks about this, but I agree with that. But that, I don't think that'll be wrong at that point if he leaves Cardinal Tuccio in to say this is really bad.
And Parolin with the China deal, like there's things we're looking for, but I want to give him a little time to do those things.
Yeah. Do we agree on that? Is there any dissension in the ranks? Nick, do you disagree on that? He couldn't, right?
Yeah, no, my only advice is pray, hope, and don't worry. That's about it.
Yeah, no. All right. So I know you wanted to jump on because I was saying I'm sorry. But
yeah, that's all it was.
I know. And I brought you on because I don't want to back down from something I did out of mimetic desire. Like, I want to be held to account. That's it. But I do worry about how we're approaching this pontificate within 24 hours. That's all.
I'll amend Nick's thing. Pray, hope, don't worry, and never back down to the mob unless you've committed some serious sin. Never back down. The mob, the one thing the mob can be counted on, whether on Twitter, real life, the Colosseum, they're always stupid. It's a few and a many problem. Plato and Aristotle, it's the one thing they agree on, right? This is a few and a many problem. The mob manages to get everything wrong. So pray, hope, don't worry, and don't mind the mob. You got to be straightforward. It's clearest path to truth. And the truth is a person, and it's Jesus, which is why you should pray, hope, and don't worry, and never back down to the mob. They killed Jesus. They killed Socrates. Just don't mind the mob.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one. So, all right, Tim, I'm going to talk with Nick for a little bit because I haven't had Nick on in a while, but yeah, text me if I say anything. that's too soft. I'm telling you what it is. I want to go into this with a ceasefire. Like, I don't want to be I just don't want to be the guy that's going at it. And it's not from mimetic desire. It's from, this is the Pope. And I want to give the Pope some room to be the Pope before I jump down his throat.
I want to give him all the room he needs to do the right thing. God bless you guys.
Right,
and
I'll see you, Tim.
let's see him. Let's see it happen.
Let's see you, brother.
Peace.
So he was texting me, and I got other people texting me too, telling me he's right. So I mean, it was choleric. That's what it is. Like, Tim's ultra choleric. So he's like, I don't care when I see the truth, it's like the truth is the thing I'm going to push on. Where I think other temperaments are more like, oh man, it's a bad look, you know? So I don't know. I feel bad, Nick, because me and you haven't talked in a while, but how you feeling in these first 24 hours?
I'm feeling good. I mean, I think that all we can do ultimately is the three things. Like if you break down pray, hope, and don't worry, it's like prayer is seek union with God, hope knowing that ultimately, even if hypothetically things go wrong, that he will bring all things to his glory and that the church is still true. And
Holdsworth is in the chat. Brian, do you want to come on? Would you want to have Brian on?
Yeah, that's fine. Is this the real Brian Holdsworth? I've seen Jimmy Aiken, Father Jim Martin, and Brian Holdsworth. So if this is the
Brian,
real,
if you want to come on, because I really do, I want to get all of the perspectives here, and I want to balance it out. And I tend to, bring Brian. All right, Brian, I'm going to send you the link. Copy. Let's see. I mean, look, this is just trying to let me see. I don't even know if that's really him. I'm gonna say if that's really you in the chat.
you might as well text. For everyone out there, the last thing with don't worry. The Lord talks about not letting, you don't worry about anything. And I think that that's something that I felt prey to in the Francis pontificate. Just a good idea not to follow through it when it comes to this.
I think this is wrong. Tim is not a doomer who would rather be right than trust in the Lord. That's absolutely not what that is. I'm telling you, Tim is he's just a purist. It's the only way I could describe him. Like, he's a freaking purist. And the thing is, he doesn't care if he hurts your feelings. Like, he was the first guy that I was interacting with behind the scenes. And when I had Trent Horn on, or when I had those guys on, he was like, I'm just telling you, you're too agreeable. And you're not, you're backing down on your positions because you don't want the conflict. And that's absolutely true. It's my temperament. I don't like starting a conflict with a guy who came onto my show as a friendly guy. But there were major disagreements I had with Trent that I didn't bring up, or I kind of let fly over too easily. I mean, they're disagreements that would have been easily discussed. It wasn't like it would have ended our friendship or something. They're not, you know what I mean? It's nothing like that. It's just Tim is a freaking purist. And when he sees something, he's like, I don't give a crap about anything but the truth. It's he's all choleric, where I'm sanguine choleric, and I like to go along to get along a bit. I don't know if that was actually Brian, because he's not replying, but
yeah, I don't think that was Brian because of some of the other responses. No, I understand. Yeah, I understand the pure choleric response. I just think that it's somewhat wise to kind of just sit back and see what happens. I don't think that you do that in the sense of, hey, we don't know anything about this guy. I mean, obviously there are some legitimate concerns that can be brought forward, but I think at the same time, that's where, as my initial point says, you have to give him the benefit of the doubt, and you have to put charity first and say, well, let's see what happens, and I'll ultimately pray. Because as I said on my show yesterday, I definitely did not do very well at praying for Pope Francis, to my shame, in his pontificate. And this is something that I've committed to every single day, making sure I at least pray a rosary for him.
Well, Brian, if it really is you, I sent you the DM in your Twitter. So you're saying it is me. Well, if it is you, the Twitter DM, I sent it to you. Oh, do you want me to email it to you?
If this is actually Brian, that's pretty cool. But
yeah, let me see.
I don't know. I kind of YouTube doesn't have the check marks like X does. I kind of wish it did.
I forgot what his email is. What the hell is this email? I'm sorry, guys. You got to bear with me here.
How are you guys doing in the chat? I haven't seen some of you guys in a hot minute. You guys all doing good? So, it is me. We will see if it's Mr. Holdsworth. I like Brian. I like Brian a lot. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I gotta just see what his stupid email is. Oh, it's okay. I got it.
Yeah, I got to figure out if this is actually Brian. I'm curious on how Brian scripts his videos. Brian has this unique way of like outlining really good Thomistic principles in very simple ways. And as a teacher, I always feel like I'm a horrible teacher. I think that's just a teacher thing. And so I'm like, Brian, teach me your ways. I don't know how you do this. So
yeah, and the thing is, I really enjoyed the whether it's mimetic desire or not. Like, I do like how people are having this ceasefire, and it's like now you have the left Caths who loved Francis really don't have any ammunition to call us hostile and things like that. It's like, I want to give this guy a little bit of room. We don't know what he's going to do, even if you say based on his previous past actions. Like, I still don't. Where am I going bold? What are you guys talking about? I got headphones on.
yeah, well, I know what you're saying. I mean, my big thing is that the grace of the office of Saint Peter is there are graces and charisms attached to that office, and I legitimately believe that if he cooperates with them, we might be very surprised. It's one of those things where it's like, I think about it this way. Here's just a good basic analogy. St. Paul, right, when he was Saul, did a lot of bad stuff, right? But when the Lord really got a hold of him, he really used him for good. Now, while it's not a one-for-one perfect analogy, point is that when God gets a hold upon somebody, someone could really change. And so the thing is, I've seen some really good comments that he's made about various issues. I've seen some stuff that I find very concerning, but I'm like, look, he's the Pope. Let us give him a chance. We'll just have to see what happens.
Oh, he's here. Look at that.
It is Brian, my friend. How you doing, sir?
Hey guys, good.
Hey, Brian.
So this was actually you, because I honestly we had a fake Jimmy Aiken in the chat. We had a Father James Martin in the chat. I was like, I don't really know if this is Brian, to be honest.
I got Tim texting me
like
the
audience
lunatic.
you guys attract. That's what you get for it.
Well, that is actually an interesting point about our show. It's like, I do think we're a bit of a bridge between more normie Novus Ordo Catholics and traditional Catholics. And I think that like a lot of guys that we enjoy watching do check out our show. And it's because it's a lighthearted, humorous show and stuff. And I'll never like attack somebody that comes on and stuff. So were you finger wagging at anybody specific in your video yesterday? I did not see the video. Or were you just giving like a general...
I didn't think you figured why.
No, I hadn't watched anybody else's reactions when I shot that. That was my honest, just like, so yesterday I was with my kids. We watched the announcement up until right before he blessed the crowd, and then we had to get in the car because we were going to the March for Life here in my home province. So we were out all day and then got home, and I just thought, I have to say something about this. So I quickly shot something as soon as we got home. And then I just kind of logged off for the rest of the night. So no, it wasn't directed at anybody specifically. Yeah, but that said, so I went out and did a bunch of work in my yard, which is also what I was doing, which is why it took me so long to get logged on to here.
You were
but I was listening to you guys. So your episode with Tim and Rob yesterday, and I had commented on, I don't know if you saw the comment, but I said something like, it
was funny, right?
Well, I said something like, I'm one of the Copium Springs Eternal guys, or whatever Tim's phrase was. But that simultaneously, like, I was laughing out loud in my yard, like shoveling dirt while I was listening to you guys, because I disagree with a lot of what Tim was saying, but Tim's a funny guy, and I was laughing at a lot of the the points that you were saying, and I think that that's what you guys do well, is that you can be provocative, but it's generally, as far as anybody should be able to tell, in goodwill and earnest, and it's not meant to be malicious. So I think that that's a good approach.
Yeah, listen, yesterday,
I appreciate that.
Yesterday happened, and like, dude, my heart sank. I was like, there was 3 names I was listening for, and Prevost was one of them. Like, it was one of them, because I had seen all these things leading up to it. So when they said his name out, I was like, oh no, and this sense of doom came over me. And what I was coming on the show to do was say, I don't want, because I know the way I talk can influence the people listening to me, and I don't want to doom the people listening to me. So I had normie Catholics calling me yesterday that don't watch the show, and they're like, what do you think of this Pope? And I was like, not good. And I'm like, and I thought about it last night when I went to bed. I'm like, I am setting the stage for people that don't really pay attention to church politics like I do, and giving them an immediate bad impression of a guy that they don't know anything about. And I thought that was wrong. I'm like, these are just normal Catholics that they're not like us, where we're like geeking out about like every little thing that happens. And I'm like, now these guys are going to go into this pontificate thinking, oh, this Pope is bad. He's from America. He's from Chicago. And it's like, I should not have done that. I think it is a different thing when we're talking like this amongst people who can push back a little bit and things like that. But that specific thing is what I really felt bad about.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest too, listening to your guys' episode, because I didn't know anything about him prior, like I wasn't even familiar with him. I was familiar with like a handful of American cardinals, but when they said he's American in that name, I was like, what? There's an American cardinal I don't even know about. Granted, he's kind of newish, so maybe I can be forgiven for that. But I'm also not. I don't follow like Tim. Listening to Tim, he's rattling off of all these sort of intriguing details about all of these different personalities. I'm like, I don't know about any of this stuff, right? Like I just don't follow it that closely. So it's probably easier for me to just be like, well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But listening to your guys' episode, you know, if I'm being honest, yesterday by the end of it, I was like, oh, this does sound bad. Yeah. Maybe this guy is as bad as like a Supich or a Tobin or something like that. And if either of those guys had walked out onto the loggia, I would have been like, I'm not giving the benefit of the doubt here. Like this is a disaster, right? And so if I knew enough about Prevost and I knew bad things about him, maybe it would be harder for me. But from also, you know, having taken stock of a lot of the things that Tim was saying and you guys were saying yesterday, at the end of the day, I don't like Tim kept on saying that, you know, he's an Aristotelian and therefore it's all about the truth for him. But, you know, I don't think a lot of the conclusions he was drawing are necessary conclusions from the evidence that's offered to us, right? You could say, well, he's a St. Gallen guy. Okay. But does that mean he's going to be a bad Pope? Like there are other possible interpretations here. He could just be a very diplomatic personality who is able to build bridges between the extremes on that end of the spectrum and the extremes on the other end of the spectrum. You know, there's people like Burke and Seurat who seem really pleased with this outcome, right? And maybe they're just gaslighting, or maybe they're just putting up a veneer of approval, but maybe they're being sincere, and we should give them the benefit of the doubt as well. Maybe they know things about this guy that he can actually draw all of these spectrums together. And maybe, you know, if you're more cynical about it, you could say, well, that's impossible, right? Like there's such polar opposites that can't be done. But I don't know.
What do you make of what Tim was saying about like Leo XIV is going to have to go back and correct these errors of Francis? Like there are actual errors in Amoris Laetitia that need to be corrected, and like that can be a litmus test for what we can, because look, there are some, he can make these gestures, get rid of traditionis, things like that. But the real thing the trads were upset about, it wasn't the 2% of us that go to the Latin Mass. It was, I mean, it wasn't, because they tried to make it like it was just the trads that had a problem with Francis, but it wasn't. It was all faithful Catholics were like, what the hell is this guy doing? So what do we do about a guy that we like? Because I still want to give the guy room to go and some time to go and take care of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I would strongly disagree with Tim on the question of, you know, there's this crowd of traditionalists who are, what did he call us? One song,
something like
one issue voters or something like that. But and frankly, you know, if all I could get was the Latin Mass and given room to flourish, that would be massive in my mind, given what we've been through, for one specific reason, because in my own Latin Mass community, we are flourishing. We're breeding. Like the average age at our Latin Mass is probably like 13 at most. There's kids everywhere. We have socials every other week, and the hall is filled with like crazy kids everywhere, running around, getting to know each other, wearing 3-piece suits and bow ties, and it's like that's dangerous to the progressives and to the modernists, because that's culture, and culture won't just raise a generation of people committed to the faith creedally, but culturally they'll have a heart for the faith as well. And if you allow the Latin Mass to proliferate and to distribute itself the way it was under Summorum Pontificum, you're going to raise a generation of trads. Like,
I wanted to bring this up with Tim.
And culturally sound.
I wanted to bring this up with Tim. I forgot to, but he does understand that because of skateboarding. It's like,
yeah,
like skateboarding was a culture, and I could still see that culture is in him. You know, so to me,
that was my culture too. Growing up, I was a sponsored skateboarder actually, as when I was like 17 years old. So
wow.
So I fully get what culture, what punk rock skateboarding culture, what subculture is all about, and that's why I think I have these sensitivities to culture within the dynamics of the church.
100%. And the liturgy to me, so this was like a change in my thought over years, where it took me like really being a Latin Mass regular attendee that you see that culture soaks into you. I can't even explain it. It's just, it made me realize that like the shifts that happened in our culture, I'm not saying they're the sole cause of changing the liturgy, but they have so much to do with it, because when you're living that liturgy out, it changes the way you think, it changes the way you see things, right? So
totally.
My point would have been where he's saying like the morals come first. My point would be that living that liturgy out will then lead to the morals, right? Like, so
well, and doctrine is there too. I've never heard a bad homily at the Latin Mass. Like, so the fraternity cares for our community, and it's like every week we're getting St. Thomas, we're getting St. Francis, we're getting the whole spectrum of church fathers who are sound, and Augustine. Every week the bulletin is going through some work of Augustine, and I'm sitting here reading it like right before Mass, and it's like you can't be immersed in that atmosphere and not have it affect you both doctrinally, both in the mind and the heart. And I think that if you raise a generation like that, it doesn't matter how many St. Gallen mafiosos there are. They can't. That's a tidal wave coming their way, and their clock is ticking.
Yeah, so I know Tim would say, dude, I love the Latin Mass as much as you guys do, and I'm not disputing that he does. My point is that even if Leo doesn't go back and correct these errors of Francis, if he gives us the Latin Mass back, it will prepare the next generation to face that battle when we finally do get the Pope that's going to be the Pope of Restoration that will go and tackle it. Like, I think it does take a full cultural change, because you think about what happened in the 60s and with the council, and it was an entire generation was just in this free fall from the sexual revolution and all these things. And that's what led to those liturgical changes. And then those liturgical changes were the precursor to them messing with the moral foundation. It's like you change the liturgy first, and then you mess with the liturgy, and then you mess with the morality. And that's what they did in England. Like, if you go back and read Eamon Duffy's book, it's like the first thing they did was change the liturgy, and then they start messing with the doctrine and the dogma, because the liturgy is absolutely foundational to this stuff. So I think I'm going to be happy if we get those bones thrown to us. I just am. I know it's not the penultimate standard that we're looking for, but I'm going to be happy with them.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It would be devastating if they actually did succeed in implementing what it seemed like people like Roche and Francis wanted in the complete suppression and dissolution of the Latin Mass. Because communities like mine, like my family, would have to go back to the Novus Ordo. And what would we find at the Novus Ordo? My children would grow tired of a banal beige faith that does nothing for them, and for which there would be no peer group for them to reinforce their faith, right? Like the community of people there are mostly public school kids wearing booty shorts at Mass, right? Exactly. My kids wearing dresses who want to hear chant, who want to read poetry together and have poetry recitals. Like, they're not going to find their people there, and they're going to get lonely and isolated and exhausted by it all. But the fact that we are able to go to Latin Mass is strengthening that generation, who's going to have to fight tough fights, but they're going to be way stronger than my generation. And even Nick's generation. Like, so you're Gen Z, right, Nick?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, even some of the, I mean, I'm impressed by a lot of what I'm seeing with people like Nick and his generation. Like they have certain strengths that, and aptitudes of the mind and learning that, like, I've had to start reading some of this stuff by the time I was like 20 and already kind of a bit of a lost cause because of such a poor upbringing and bad education. And I think that that's what's going to save the church, is just this future generation that has the opportunity to band together and to get the right formation culturally and creedally.
Well, so all right, so somebody said we're like it's Stockholm syndrome. We're like abuse victims, just happy if the beatings start, right? We sound like survivors of abuse group, just grateful if the beatings stop. Yes, because where else do we go? So like any improvement, we are like, the past 12 years were brutal. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it's just, it was vicious to have constant airplane interviews where you're called rigid and backwardist and all these things. So yes, I think those gestures of him stopping that are going to that. And then if we do get the Latin Mass, like Tim is texting me like crazy right now because he's infuriated by this conversation. We'll have to get him back on another time, but we can't do it now.
Bring him back on. Bring him back on.
You want to come back on?
Sure.
Come back on. Tim. You get the link. Pop in. We're better off hashing these things out together. Absolutely. Like, I really do think when disagreements come up, like if brothers just get on and talk together, it's the best way to do it. You have the link, Tim. Just pop in. Like, if there's anything I could do and like get people to have conversations that don't typically talk, like,
one thing I'll say about the Stockholm syndrome thing though is like, let's concede that all the way, and let's say we are as oppressed as something like people living in like a communist state, for example. Like we're 1960s Czechoslovakia, and we're surrounded by secret police and any sort of toe out of line, and that the heel is going to come down on us, right? Well, if the oppression is bad enough, what could we possibly do? And what's the reason for the oppression is that we as the mass are dangerous to those of the few in authority, right? So they have to keep us down. They have to keep our abilities and our wealth and our opportunity to collaborate and to gather and to protest and all those kinds of things. They have to prevent that. And they do that through threats and violence and fear and all of that kind of stuff, right? What if they lift the boot, though? You could look at that and say, well, you're grateful that they lifted the boot. That's just Stockholm syndrome. It's like, yeah, sure. But also now we're much more dangerous because we aren't living in constant fear, and because we can gather and we can conspire and we can work together, because we're not living under the constant threat of execution or of our neighbor being a member of the secret police or whatever. So with that boot lifted off the Latin Mass, that gives us strength and that gives us power that we didn't have otherwise. And that's better than nothing. That's better than where we were a year ago.
That's my position. So me and Tim were talking yesterday, and it's like we were pointing out, it's like, yeah, okay, so trads are going to get thrown these bones, and Tim's point is that when that happens, what they're doing is coalition building, and all they're trying to do is bring more people over to the Pope-splainer side. So it's like they give us our TLM back, and then next thing you know, they have another synod and they start pushing that boundary again that Francis was pushing that whole time. But because we got our TLM back, all of a sudden we're like, oh, don't say nothing about the Pope. I don't want to lose my Latin Mass. And I do think part of that is part of the Stockholm syndrome.
Sure. Okay. So let's say that as a tactic is effective. So for the current generation that could like be the resistance generation. So let's say that's the three of us and Tim as well. Hey, Tim. Let's say that placates us, that pacifies us. So we're no longer resistant. Frankly, I don't think that resistance from us is going to do anything other than just expose us to the boot again. I think that the coming generation, Gen Z and like my kids' generation, I think that they're the wave, and it's clergy as well. Remember, look at the change of the clergy and the direction that they're headed in, like from very, very liberal a few decades ago to very, very conservative now. And I think that trend is going to continue as this generation grows up. That's the generation that will actually be able to resist and affect change, because it's going to be a whole generation of clergy who are going to then become bishops, because there's no Gen X bishops, frankly, who are then going to just assume all of these roles within the episcopate, and one of them will become pope as well. And at that point, it's a done deal. And we don't really have to be the violent overthrow resistance or whatever we want to be at that point.
Before you guys all debate it out, I've had to use the restroom for 2 hours.
Oh,
so
go ahead, Nick. Go ahead. Yeah. And just come
but
back.
I'm gonna let you three famous people hash out the conversation. I'm just a simple theology.
We need a moderator in here. This is
we'll let Anthony
moderate.
do that because he's
Tim. I do need to know. Do I need a beep button for you today? Is what people are asking me.
Just before I leave, just God bless all three of you. And Anthony, whenever the show is done, I give Brian my number. I'd love to actually connect and do some type of nerdy theology thing with you, if you'd be open to that, Brian. So
sure, yeah. Are you leaving for the rest of the show, Nick?
Yeah,
he's gonna let us.
Okay,
I'm gonna let you three do it. I honestly don't think I can contribute much to the conversation. So, but
sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, God bless you three.
All right,
God bless you. Man. Don't leave on my account.
No, you guys are good. Go for it.
God bless you, bro.
So Tim, you texted me like a madman. I'm trying to pay attention to two things at once. So, what were you bringing up? Because I was trying to listen and you were texting at the same time.
Oh well, I mean, I was just saying, Brian, what's up, bro? How are you?
Good.
I didn't understand some of the characterizations, but I would never say that to be an Aristotelian you can divine the future or something. I simply didn't say that. And I thought Anthony would correct that. Yesterday we were just saying, look, as of right now, I heard you, which I appreciated, admit, look, I didn't follow these personalities in the College of Cardinals as closely. As of right now, it looks really bad. This guy is a close collaborator of Francis Mariadaga, whatever his name is, and Cardinal Supage, and things are looking bad, And so what I was connecting was the idea that we have to go where as close as we can approximate the evidence to truth, like cause to effect. That's all I was saying. I wasn't saying that it gives me an ability to divine the truth.
No, and I think that it seems to me that a lot of the evidence is speculative, though, so that the truth or some of the conclusions that are being drawn, there could be alternative explanations to a lot of the things. And we could go through specifics of that. But just as I was listening to the episode yesterday, that's where I felt. I was like, I mean, that makes sense. That's a logical conclusion. But I think that there are others as well. And from that range, if for those of us that want to be copers or copiums or whatever, that's an attractive option.
Sure, but we can always apply relative quantities to, okay, close, Mariadaga or Supage, Francis. His brother says he's going to be Francis too. It sounded, and Twitter's a horrible medium for carrying on convos. It should be more like this.
For sure.
It sounded like you were saying that it's like, well, 50-50. Maybe he is all of those things, and maybe somehow coincidentally it doesn't. I was just saying, yeah, 99%. This sounds like a Francis man. That's not speculative beyond dealing with the relative ratios of probability. It's just he's definitely been here, and here in the past. I'm hoping for the best. But when people groaned, like even Anthony Stein, who this is not a temperament thing. He's probably phlegmatic or something. And he said just what he said, when a couple of these things happened this morning. The new Pope, Leo XIV, doesn't want to get rid of Tucho Fernandez originally. It is pretty quick. But I thought the same thing. And and people were jumping on his case. And he's very phlegmatic. And Anthony, again, he's got a doctorate. I'm working on a doctorate. We're guys that have studied this stuff for a decade. And so it has the look of, if we're talking about charity, an uncharitable mob leaping on one or two or three guys who do know this stuff very well, just because they don't like the semi-inevitable prescription. It's not inevitable, all right? It could be some other explanation, but it's very improbable that this guy has not, at least to this point, been a Francis man. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, and it depends what we mean by a Francis man too, because he could be trying to position himself as everybody's man, which isn't ideal because you can't do that, but it's better than being fully committed to one faction and hostile to the other. And if we think of ourselves as the other faction, I would prefer a guy who's trying to ally himself to everybody and trying to bring everybody together and build bridges than someone who's just going to bring the boot down. And I think that that's a possible explanation. I mean, he could just be one of those very diplomatic guys who behind closed doors, as someone who what was he with the dicastery for bishops or something like that, who would have been meeting with all these various bishops one-on-one, presumably, or just was a close contact to them. He could have just been one of those guys who is very affable in those scenarios, at which point they think, oh yeah, he's one of my guys.
Except
therefore,
that he acts like the holiest American bid. That doesn't have a good.
He could have been doing that at Francis's behest, first off, and second off, like Tim, we saw this with a lot of the bishops and this just reeks to me of just weak men that are going with mimetic desire as well. Where under Benedict they were saying one thing, and then Francis came and they were just like Dolan even did a little bit of that, where it was like, well, Francis said he wants the culture wars to end, where Dolan before, when he was under Benedict, he was like a pro-life leader in the church. We thought he was the greatest bishop ever. So there is even like the Supich connections we were making. I saw somebody pointed out today, they were like, there's no actual connection between him and Supich. Supich, like he was out of the diocese before Supich. He wasn't really his boss and stuff. So like, I understand, like we could have been making more connections that were actually there, but
no, the connection is strong. They weren't there in the same time. They don't share a diocese. That doesn't work. But they're strong friends, and Supich, it is now known, was strongly in his camp. But no, and by the way the Curia works is Francis didn't know who Strickland is. Francis didn't have it out. Francis doesn't know who most of the bishops are. The dicastery for bishops, as prefect, he knows all of the big bishops, particularly the problem ones. It's more like he advised Francis to get rid of Strickland. That's the way it typically works. That's how the Curia works. That's how the dicasteries work. But the point is really that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tim.
I'm just saying, you guys already heard my litmus test, and I think it's a rational one. And that was the only other thing I was texting you about, Anthony, was I think it's a quite defensible litmus test because we cannot permit Arianism. That's why we have ecumenical councils. It wasn't even a guarantee in the Roman Catholic Church that there was going to be an ecumenical council. We started having them because of Arianism, and then the next 6 councils are shoot-offs of Arianism, right? So we only have councils because of doctrinal error, because of heterodoxy. It is intolerable. I love the Latin Mass too, and everyone was making me like I didn't get how potent a bromide it is. It is culturally precisely as potent as you, Brian, were saying, and Anthony, you were saying. Like, it's just mischaracterizing me. But it's not the same discipline, beautiful culture building discipline in all the ways, Brian, you were adducing, perfectly, exactly well expressed. Is not even in. It's not the same thing as doctrine. Doctrine.
No.
Heterodoxy explodes the church, and we have that tumor right now, and it can't go longer, or we don't have the one true faith. It's that important. So that's why it's the litmus test.
So if we take something like Amoris Laetitia, though, I mean, it's symptomatic to me of everything that has gone on in the church for, like, let's say, the past 60 years, and not everything, but a lot of the milestone incidents that provoked confusion, let's say, where it wasn't that, a pope or anybody representing the magisterium came out and said something that was like definitively heretical. It was, here's kind of an open door interpretation to something, and maybe a bishops' conference will come along, like say in Argentina, and come up with an interpretation that is heretical or heterodox, and I can just give them a wink and a thumbs up, which isn't a magisterial statement of any kind. So I avoid compromising that, But then I am still pursuing the agenda that I want to see enacted within the church. I think that kind of thing goes on a lot in the church. And I think the remedy for that kind of thing, like ideally, you and I would probably say the remedy to that is like a Pius the 13th who will come in and like just bring the hammer down and say, no more of this nonsense. But I think that would just cause a war within the church.
No, I agree with that. If I agree with you non-facetiously 100%, if that were what happened, Brian. And I do also agree with your characterization that that's what had been going on since the close of the Second Vatican Council. That kind of situation you described. That's not what happened, though. That was most of what happened until September of 2016. What happened was the Argentine bishops wrote their own dubia while Burke et al. Were still awaiting the answers and dying in waiting for the answer to their dubia. We're still waiting for it. They wrote their dubia, and it was responded to the same day. They said, we're going to give active adulterers communion, which can't happen. Is this what you want? And Francis not only responded unambiguously, Francis said, that is correct. Also said, that is the only correct interpretation. But wait, there's more. The same day he wrote that Risposta, he placed it into the deposit of the closest thing to a living deposit of faith, the Acta Apostolica Sedis. You missed that part, and that makes all the difference. That is truly unique. It is lying in our deposit of faith. We are lying when we tell Protestants and Orthodox that we've never had a contradiction in. We have that until another pope gets rid of it. Now, it doesn't explode the church until popes habitually teach error. So if the next guy after Francis, Leo XIV, says wrong, then we're still good. If the next guy after Francis makes it a habit, we're in real trouble. This is not just the beautiful culture of the Latin Mass versus the ugly Novus Ordo.
So I think that's a false dichotomy you're putting up, though, because you're saying it's like, well, Arianism is okay, or communion for divorce and remarried is okay as long as we get the TLM. And that's not what I was saying either. I was saying if we did get the Latin Mass, not that that's okay, it's that you're forming the next generation for the actual fight when it comes up again. We don't have a culture that is, dude, when you poll Catholics and you're talking about mass going Catholics about the divorce and remarriage thing, it's like 80%. You put your own poll out. You remember how skewed your poll was and you have a freaking trad audience following you, how skewed the poll was for divorced and remarried to receive communion in that one thing. It was like, that was one of the highest ones that went. So if you don't have a culture that's willing to stand up and go, because we all know people that are divorced and remarried, like it's a plague on our culture. So if you allow the TLM, what you're doing is you're forming that next culture to put pressure on their hierarchy to then go ahead with this, because the hierarchy, they like to be liked, so I mean, that's,
we're not like, it's not a vox populi. We already have it. I mean, for all of these other issues on my poll, you're right, that one was surprising, particularly for my audience, Anthony. But for all these issues, they were mostly 85-15 or 90-10. You saw that. That doesn't matter. They've been 85-15 or 90-10 for at least the last 10 years. We do not have a democracy. What's dangerous about a monarchy, which is what we function under, it's the best theoretical form of government, but the worst when it goes bad, according to Thomas and Aristotle, right? What's dangerous about it is if they harden their hearts like Pharaoh, and they say, we're not going to listen on this, the way they haven't been for over 10 years, 15 years, then it doesn't matter how many good Latin Mass Catholics you get. The Latin Mass Catholics have always been the faithful ones. They've always had children of 10 to 15, big families. They'll still.
But now there's like 10 times as many of us, though.
I know, but the point is there's a lot of us as it is. Even if there's 10 times as many, or whatever, 1%, even if it goes to 10%, that doesn't change Denzinger and the way that the magisterium and holy tradition works is, if in that time habitual error is taught, then we have a real problem. And it's just, it's not, they're not comparable things. You're never going to get to doctrinal contradiction, not doctrinal tension like some of the Vatican II documents, doctrinal outright heretical contradiction. Mueller said it was practically formal heresy. You're not going to get to that just by having more grassroots good Catholics. And I also want to make everyone clear that the only place my family receives the sacraments is in the Latin Mass.
I wasn't accusing you of not doing that. I was pointing out, like, my position on it shifted by seeing how much my life changed by going to it regularly, and seeing the change in my children by going to it regularly. And I thought that would be a good approach. I'm still going to be happy with that. I know what you're saying. Like, it's the two can't even be compared when you're talking about heresy.
My life is much better when I go to the Latin Masses too. Brian's and his families too, and my families and Brian's families too. Everyone knows this, but that doesn't change if you have. I don't know how else to express it. It's like,
I think you've expressed
we
it
have
clearly.
heresy in the AAS, man. That's not, that can't be brooked. That can't be passively tolerated. It's the worst. We have the worst crisis ever. Arianism wasn't even in the AAS. You just had bishops teaching it. This is the Pope. Put it into the deposit of faith. Like, wake up. It's a huge deal. I'm going to go debate Jay Dyer and some Freemasonic Protestant on Tim Pool's show on June 13th. And they can literally just be like, dude, Pope Francis, and you have Pope splainers out there. He literally put a heresy into the AAS. I'm like, well, it's not habitual yet. What if by June 13th, this guy doubles down on that? It becomes habitual teaching. Someone answer me that. I'll wait. It's really important.
What is the heresy, though, Tim? Like, I understand that what it communicates is heretical, but like, what is the actual heresy on, like, the doctrinal heresy on the books? Because and again, I don't know the whole ins and outs of everything that's happened since Amoris Laetitia and the response to the Dubium, but to me, it suggests that all that he's given so far is instruction on discipline rather than actual doctrine.
No, because Anthony was the one saying the Latin Mass is doctrine, not discipline. No, this is actually that Matthew chapter 5, our Lord is wrong. That Luke chapter, 18 verse 16 or 16 verse 18, I forget. Right. Is wrong. He's saying Jesus is wrong. Pope Francis it stands for you could do it in modal logic. I was a logic professor. You could say that this stands for the proposition that if Francis right, Jesus wrong. But when Jesus says, if you divorce your wife and marry another, it's adultery. Francis is either saying that it's not adultery or that adultery is not a mortal sin. Both of those are, this is why Mueller said it. Mueller's a cautious guy, our outgoing CDF. He's saying, that A equals not A on a very, very, very basic scriptural dogma.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Anthony. But to me, I that's what it communicates again, because discipline can communicate, it can instruct, right? Like, if you allow divorced and remarried people to receive communion, you're saying that you're not in mortal sin, right? That could just be an abuse of the disciplines without necessarily saying that, right? Like, I get that that's what maybe Francis would have wanted if that's what he was communicating, but the claim that divorced and remarried people aren't committing adultery, that isn't explicitly communicated on the books.
What you're describing, Brian, is more like how the German synodal way operates. Before Francis did fiducia, they just opened up 800 churches, and this was going to be Francis's number 2 to replace Cardinal Ladaria Ferrer, the CDF. Yeah. He burned through CDFs. Before he gave us Tucho, he tried twice to give us Heiner Wilmer, who was the German synodal ways leader, and Heiner was just opening up 800 churches per weekend and saying, let's bless gay couples, even though Ladaria Ferrer had said this is not allowed. That's the situation, the kind of praxeological situation you just described, Brian, to a T. Right. No, but this is not that, though. For it to be heterodoxy or actual heresy, he doesn't have, because no heretic would ever say that, like murder is good or whatever, or worshiping multiple gods is good. That's not how heretics work. Propositionally, by Francis putting his Resposta into the AAS, it is real heresy. Like, double check me, Google it, do your own work. Don't take it from me. But I'm just saying we have real heresy in the AAS right now. It's not the same thing as just turning a blind eye and allowing it. It is the biggest problem from his pontificate. And I've done shows on like the 100 huge problems, but there are none against which this doesn't pale in comparison. This is head and shoulders above the rest because it explodes the church and our claims about the infallibility of tradition.
Right. But doesn't it just, isn't there an interpretation of this where you could say that the instruction goes so far as saying that people who are in abnormal or irregular marriage states, or the situation is so complex or unclear that there might be scenarios in which they could receive communion, and maybe that even means like they have to go to confession right before, receive communion, and then go back. And I know that's not tenable, obviously, because they have to have.
You can't receive absolutely. Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, obviously. But like, what if they're trying to think of scenarios that are known only to God or some BS like that, where they say, well, maybe in those scenarios, and they're just trying to open up the window through ambiguity, but they still haven't said that they're not adulterers or that Jesus was wrong. Like, nothing like that exists on the books as far as I know.
He hasn't said, quote unquote, Jesus is wrong, Brian.
Right.
But I don't know how much you know about the history of this issue. Maybe a lot. Maybe you haven't looked at it. But Familiaris Consortio by JP2 was a breakthrough on this in whenever he published it. Was that the 80s? JP2.
And what's the AAS?
What?
You know what the actual AAS stands for? What is
Acta Apostolica Sedis?
Okay.
Acta Apostolicae Sedis. AAS is just the closest thing we have to an actual depositum fide that's sort of encoded. But no, Familiaris Consortio, Brian, is the compromise. It's the final word on whether or not remarried divorcees can receive communion. Cardinal Casper, same Sankt Gallen Mafia guy, at a synod in 1982 or 1983, this is how long these guys are at work, tried the Orthodox option, which he eventually got through with Francis, in 1982 or 1983. And JP2, thank goodness, said, nope, we're not doing that. And then he published Familiaris Consortio. And he said, here's the most I can do for you. And it's actually a good compromise. It's a good compromise. JP2 said, I already gamed it out for all of the guys out there that are going to use test cases that you can't even fathom up, that Francis did use in chapter 8 of Amoris. He got it from Cardinal Casper. What if we have remarried divorcees that have new kids together and it would require splitting them up previous to Familiaris Consortio? Well, JP2 said, solve the problem for you. You can continue to live together, even if it's an adulterous second union, as long as in the foro interno, the internal forum, you get together with your priest or bishop and you promise to live continentally as husband and wife, and you get different bedrooms as brother and sister. Sorry. Familiaris Consortio destroyed any reasonable doubt that could exist afterward. It's just, that's fine. If you have a kid from the adulterous second union, live as brother and sister. I think it's Familiaris Consortio 84. If I'm not misremembering. It was revolutionary. It was a big deal. It was the answer that JP2 gave to Casper in the 80s. So there's just, when you war game stuff out the way Gallen does, or I guess the good guys do countervailingly, there's no extra hypotheticals which would even allow any daylight. It's just either heresy or not. And again, if Francis had just given that response to the Buenos Aires guys and said, okay, you have the best or only interpretation, and he didn't put it into the AAS, that would still be close. But the same day, placing the document into our depositum fide has to be undone. And I don't know, I'm repeating.
So, wait, Tim, so a lot of people are asking this, like, what constitutes habitually taught, right? So if Leo goes along with this and it's habitually taught, does this invalidate the church's infallibility for you? If so, then what?
There's no magic number. And so it's kind of like Dwight Schrute counting, to stall for time. Like, is it at 1? How about 2? How about 3? It's going from 1 to 2 popes teaching error which we've really never had since the errors in the Dispositum, is a really scary step. And you could argue it's habitual then. I don't have the magic number. I don't think Denzinger would have the magic number, but 2 to 3, 3 to 4, it's becoming a vertical asymptote at that point. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying, to take it back to this is all very outdated, 9 years old kind of analysis from 2016. Take it back to yesterday. I'm forgetting his name, Prevost, becoming Leo XIV. When we're just trying to use basic tests for proving or disproving. I mean, not proving or disproving, because everything you said, Brian and Anthony, is right. We're not going to know today. But basic tells for whether or not this is a man after Jesus's or Peter's own heart. And I said, look, the best one is this litmus test, and it shouldn't take 2 or 3 years. This is why it's the test, because of his predecessor, Francis, makes this really clear, particularly because we already know they were friends. He was friends with Supich, contrary to what people are saying. He was friends with Maradiaga, and he's related both substantively and procedurally to the litmus test, is what I'm saying.
Do you think so? I like the example that you gave about going into scenarios where you're talking to guys like Jay Dyer or Protestants or having these kinds of debates, because this is something I've felt for the past 10 years. In any attempt to defend the faith, the Orthodox faith, right? There's all of these opportunities where people are coming in and saying, well, it sounds like you're contradicting the Pope and his openness and his pastoral approach to the LGBTQ or whatever the issue might happen to be, right? And I have to sit there and be like, well, let me explain all the nuances here, because now we need 100 different distinctions to actually explain what's going on here. And that makes my job, A, boring, and B, extremely laborious, right? And people don't want to tune in for that. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought on this.
It happened. I hate when it happens. I agree with that.
When debating Protestants.
It makes it
Protestants.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay, so so do you think that there's a liability in having something formally added to the deposit of faith and then removed by a successor like that? And we saw, like, this is what one of my big issues with Traditionis Custodes is that it was like, now are we treating the pontificate like this Overton window that swings back and forth between the Republicans and the Democrats? Every time one gets elected, they undo what the other guy did. And it's like, we can't have that kind of thing going on in the church. There has to be continuity. Otherwise, we're going to start to really discredit the office and the authority of the Pope. And so, and how much more so if we're actually talking about things that are considered part of the ordinary magisterium, which then get removed. Like, that's way more severe than, like, tinkering with the catechism like we saw in recent years. Like, that to me somewhat discredits the authority of the magisterium. I
get what you're saying, but I did teach church history for 9 or 10 years, and if you look at Honorius, we don't, in the Annuario, we don't even have a clear ruling on exactly how the church regards Honorius. We don't have an exact teaching, clear teaching on what all of the other popes during now I'm losing my Arianism for those 300 years.
All like a tea with lemon and honey in it.
Yeah, we need tea with lemon. From like 300 to 600, what was the status of all the semi-weak popes and all that? There were some public facing about faces there, and going back and forth. It is, what I'm saying is, it is a lot more like electoral politics than people think. I'm good friends with Michael Knowles, and he said, and I was texting him when I was on my like third show of the day, and we were texting back and forth, and I'm losing my train of thought, but I'm like, he's like, yeah, it's never, he and others were saying it's not like electoral politics at all. It's actually a lot more like electoral politics. And it is fine, and it is baked into even the early church to have some popes going back and forth. Now, that was never with outright heresy. Like Honorius, it wasn't outright heresy with Honorius. With Francis, it's my brothers in Christ. It's outright heresy. And I get what you're saying, Brian, but it would be far better to undo it the one time, then it absolutely doesn't violate the rule of faith on how consistent we have to be, because it won't have been habitually taught. So we can't just leave it. I know you're not suggesting it in like a stupid, flippant way, but but that's kind of the implication, that maybe if we just leave it, no one will further enact it. That's not it. People know about Amoris Laetitia. Jay Dyer and the EOs know about it. I talk to them about it. Even smart Protestants, if you can find one, know about it. And more than that, we know about it. It's on our conscience. It is a real material heresy called out by CDF Mueller himself. And he insinuates it's material that's basically become formal. So sorry for the long name.
It's why they submitted the dubia, because they wanted clarifications on it. Like the dubia were submitted specifically for Amoris Laetitia, which is what I'm like a little bit hopeful that meeting with Cardinal Burke and at the time Cardinal Prevost was about that, but we don't know.
That's what I said. Yeah, no, that's my real hope, and that's why it's a litmus test, Anthony. It's a litmus test because it has to be, because. I mean, but that's where I was just objecting to. I am not hopeless. I don't like my odds, like driving up to the house and I'm pretty sure I left the water on. I'm pretty sure I'm going to see water streaming out the front door. But I do have hope that somehow God will preserve the church. He has to, but this can't be habitually taught. And Denzinger doesn't tell us how many magic popes it takes. It's a great question, like Brian, but Denzinger doesn't clarify. None of the popes that he's aggregating or none of the councils he's aggregating clarify at what point it becomes habitual error. It's just it's serious as a heart attack. I love the Latin Mass too. That's all I was saying. And I'm just like, when people yesterday were, and Brian, you were doing a little bit of it, like finger wagging. I'm like, look, we do all have different temperaments. I'm not some doomer. Someone in Anthony's audience called me a doomer. I think Leo XIV, it's within the realm of possibility. It's not, doesn't violate the rule of non-contradiction. So it's possible. Could be the best pope ever. And of course, the first thing he would do would be to undo Amoris Laetitia. So I'm not a doomer. I just have this. I was a logic professor, a philosophy professor, and when I taught high school, I was a church historian. You combine those things, and what do you get? You get a guy who says the litmus test is we got to pull this out now, and we needed 267, whoever it was going to be, to pull it out now. And I'm worried that the cardinals who gave us that guy gave it to us because they want to preserve the heresy to explode the church. And they know Sarah would have taken it out first thing. Cardinal Sarah would have taken it out first thing, or Burke, Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be the most base pope ever. I think he's going to be an interim pope. At least it appears that way at first. And he's going to be the peacemaker to a degree. But like you're saying, if we put this litmus test on him, what is the approach you think the trads are going to take from here? And because you were like, oh, everybody's finger wagging, but I really see it as a ceasefire for now. And I don't know. I just don't know what the approach we should take going forward is, because we do owe filial, like whatever, filial charity to the Pope for the time being, I think.
But I'll address this to Brian. That's not going to sound one way. Like, and if you presume that a guy like me that just cares about church history, cares about Denzinger, cares about the law of non-contradiction, and cares about being philosophically coherent, meaning not violating the principle of non-contradiction, right. I'm going to sound different than a Holdsworth or an Abate or Taylor Marshall or Anthony Stein. And I think I'm kind of the rainbow candidate. Really, COVID's about all the friends we made along the way. I think we need all the voices. I just don't like when people start saying, Tim, you have to talk this magic way, and don't ask me how I know the meta rule, the rule of faith for how we have to tweet. I just think it's BS. We all have different voices.
That's a fair point, because we brought up for how many years we listened to, because I'm friends with people that are on like the Trent Horn side and the your side, and I've had people go, Tim Gordon is pulling people away from the church, but I've also had people saying, if it wasn't for Tim Gordon, I wouldn't be Catholic today. But people on the other side hear your tone and they think you're pulling people out of the church. But some people actually need to hear things put the way you're putting them. So I think that is a fair point.
Yeah, if I can jump into that point as well. I mean, I have my temperament and my tone and my approach, right? Like this is where I try to find the balance
Plus,
between
you're
excess and
Canadian, which we don't
deficiency.
blame you for, but
Yes. No, that there's a lot of truth to that, right? Like Canadians are culturally passive aggressive, right? Like in my own context, I'm seen as like hyper choleric and really intolerant. Like there's people who have unfriended me and ghosted me because there's I can't be around that guy. He won't shut up, right? Whereas I go down like to Ohio and go on Matt Fradd's show, and Matt's like, "You're not choleric, dude. You're phlegmatic." I'm like, "No, you don't understand. It's just it's the difference between like your revolutionary spirit, which is baked in your DNA, although he's not American, obviously, but like it's the context that he's in. And our Canadian, like we became a country by sitting down for tea with the Queen and being like, okay, can we have a country now? And she's like, sure, you know, like that's kind of our cultural heritage. But so with all of that said, like, so a guy like Taylor Marshall or a guy like you, Tim, will take. You have a different temperament, you have a different tone, you have a different approach, and while you know that I've disagreed with you on certain things, for the most part I think that you have an important voice in the church. And the thing that pisses me off more than anything is the people who really want to say you know, yeah, he's causing conflict or division in the church, whoever that he might be, whether it's you, Tim, or whether it's me, or whether it's an Austin Ivory or whoever, right? Like, yeah, we disagree and we disagree vehemently, but we should be able to. We should be able to hash that out and have serious conversations about serious things, and do so to a degree that, you know, gets our hackles up in the process. That's okay. I think the complaint that people always talk about, like, you know, all these Christians and they're infighting, that's why I'm not part of the church. That's BS. That's what it means to be part of a family.
Exactly.
Right? Families fight. It's the people who are indifferent towards each other, like divorcees who won't talk to each other. That's when you know you've got a problem. At least we're still talking if we're fighting, right? That's a good sign, I would say. There's a lot to fight about. Like Chesterton talks about that, right? Of all the things to fight about, the faith and religion is worth fighting about. So let's fight about it. That's great as far as I'm concerned.
dude, if you guys ever came to a body family function, like we are freaking out, screaming at each other, and then hugging at the end of it. It's just the way it is. So I'm used to
that's great
situations where people are fighting and then they make up. And then I've seen families that are very closed off and they keep everything bottled in and they do end up divorced and crap like that. So I was very happy that you both wanted to come on, and because clearly there was a little disagreement there. And
we've been on each other's shows. So I mean, I've always liked it. I mean, the last thing where I felt finger wag, Brian, was Trent Horner, his wife, dressed up as me and, you know, acted like some sort of skater idiot. And then I put on headgear too. And you're like, well, that's me. And I was like, well, I mean, I don't have very thin skin. Everyone probably here knows that, but we have to have one standard for everyone. Like if so-and-so is going to go on and put on headgear and make someone look like a caricaturized version of themselves, then you're going to get it back. I mean, girls don't get that by and large. Guys get that. But
I think the immediate perception was something to do with Trent's heritage. And it wasn't that. You were literally just goofing on his hair. But it was different when you did it. And I thought it was just goofy and silly. Like you did it on my show. It was like
that's why we need a masculine voice in the church, because guys goof around, girls choose to get offended. And once we reclaim that, then we'll reclaim joy, goodness, joking, things like that. But like I just the one thing, and Brian, I've always liked you, which I told you in DM, and I don't say that because I am so aggressive. I don't say that to people I don't mean it to. I've always liked you. I was just like, again, the tone policing is an element of the post-conciliar kind of girl church that is going to die out. And it couldn't die out fast enough, because I talk like a man, right? Other people talk, you know, I talk like a whatever. I always forget the word for what you're saying my temperament is.
Choleric.
I'm also the nostalgic.
Choleric.
I'm choleric, nostalgic, whatever the fourth one is. I'm a mixture, and I'm super nice in real life.
Sanguine, probably.
Sanguine, yeah. You're choleric sanguine. You're choleric sanguine. I'm sanguine choleric. So I'm like way more on the other side. Dude. I've never seen anybody who, when they believe something, just puts their freaking foot down and they don't give a crap who's offended by what they have to say. They're just gonna say it.
Yeah, but I'm nice. And by the way, total aside, this is why we need NCAPS, Brennan and Audra Nakani's actual Catholic Thomistic personality typing system, because the 4 just isn't enough, the 4 temperaments. But that's a whole different aside. I defy anyone who's ever come up to me at Latin Mass and asked anything, and I've gotten some funny and bizarre and some onerous requests to say, oh yeah, dude, in real life, Tim's a nice guy, and everyone already knows you're a nice guy, Brian. But and you are, but the tone policing just seems like, well, it's a little bit of an implicit claim to knowing the meta rule or the rule of faith. If you know, and Anthony, this is what I was objecting to earlier today. That's all. To know exactly what people. Oh, I don't know exactly how you should talk, but I do know how you shouldn't talk. It's just not accurate. People literally criticize me most of my audience has been pre-filtered, but they'll be like, you're using too big of words. I'm like, okay, here's what you do. Email me, find out exactly to the word how many words are in your vocabulary. English has 5 times more words than the second most verbose language, or the biggest language. Find out how many words are in your vocabulary. Email it to me, and I'll only use that 21,683, those exact words, just for you and everyone else who's. There's just no one way to talk. And once this patriarchy movement that I'm kind of near the heart of takes off more and more and more, you're seeing it a lot. We're going to stop tone policing each other, because men are all different, and we all have our special auras and our special colors, and we don't have to just use the language that Anthony would have used, or Tim would have used, or Brian would have used. We're all the colors of the bow, man. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I didn't think we were going to air our dirty laundry on air, but as far as like the incident with Trent, I didn't know the other part of that story. If I didn't know that they had dressed well, I knew that she was doing parody videos all the time, but I didn't know that that's what you were responding to. So mea culpa if that's the whole context that I was missing there. And obviously, Twitter isn't conducive to having the full conversation that we would need to have. So if this is an opportunity to air grievances and say apologies, then I'll gladly offer my apology for that.
Yeah,
because I do agree with you. Yeah.
Sorry if I cut you off sort of in the deep, but I thought I said that, I'm sure I was being maybe slightly an ass. So sorry if I was, but it's tough, because when you are one of the first responders, the way I was and other members of my family, including my wife, were to this raging fire of feminism in the church, which is really what the actual guys who infiltrated the church said they wanted to do. Smasculisare. Francis repeated it. That's a Vatican II thing. And make just the women kind of run the church, then injustice reigns. And so you get stuff like all these shots, like before, people don't know this, before anything with the horns, Trent and Laura, I literally shot Trent an email. I still have this email in my sent box. I shot Trent an email, and I was like, hey man, I just saw Laura and you do a Ask Me Anything video. This is probably 3 years ago. She seems really nice. Do you guys want to just come on and do a couples thing? Because it had already been like 2 or 3 years since I'd like obliterated him in that feminism debate. And I just wanted to extend a hand. And he was like, no, she doesn't like to go on or talk about shows she doesn't know. And I was like, okay, it's not super nice, because I'm avuncular that way, even if I'm a dick in other ways. But so then all of a sudden someone sends me these videos like a year later, and she's making fun of, how I dress, how I talk, making fun of a deeply, deeply hurtful family thing that still hasn't been sewn up with my younger brother. And then she goes on Matt Fred. Matt Fred pays my wife Steph a nice compliment. She's like a prophet of asking your husband. And Laura can't stand it. And she goes, she basically says Steph needs to disobey her husband. Does she stand up to her husband? I mean, that's terrible. So like you kind of traipsed it by tone policing there. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. You already apologized. We're cool. I'm always cool with Brian.
Yeah, there was an underlying issue.
That not knowing.
Yeah, there was an underlying issue there, and there was like really, Trent, and you should just have a conversation like this. It's like
Well,
this is how
you won't, and that's why I invited because he was a little butthurt after the double debate on death penalty and feminism. You know, you could see why immediately after you listened to that double debate. But I thought, okay, let it go a year or two, and then reach out. And I literally was like, "Your wife seems really nice," you know. It was a whatever. I don't use words like cute, but it was a touching video you did together, and you and I might get along, especially in the context of the four of us with our wives. Then kind of declining on that specifically for the reason, oh, well, she doesn't know you, but then you can mock me, my brother, my wife, some of it more hurtful than other, and say my wife should challenge me. And Matt's immediately uncomfortable. He's like, whoa. So I've reached out several times, and the fact of the matter is, people might not like to hear it in the audience, but like, Brian Holdsworth's the nice guy in real life. I know, because we do correspond some. I correspond more often with Anthony. He's a real life nice guy. You probably don't want to grant it to me, some of you in your audience, but I'm a real life nice guy. Like, people meet me and they're like, thanks. Thank you for just, you are what you say you are. And but not everyone's like that. So some people really won't talk to you behind the scenes. And yeah, I don't need to get into all that, but you are, Brian, and I do appreciate it. And I would talk to Trent or Taylor or anybody that kind of leaves the steaming rabble of the relationship steaming. I'd always prefer to reconcile.
Can I tell you, man? Like, part of this whole thing with the Pope, I know it's weird, but I think so much of the tension between brothers where there is these weird things has to do with us not having a father for so long. And because, like, you look at the guys who used to run in the Catholic speaker circuit, and like, there were people, like, you would see guys that were great friends for years under Benedict. They were on the Catholic speaker circuit, and then under Francis, you just watch relationships deteriorate. And then this person saying the wrong thing about Francis, and we can't really have conversations with them publicly because we can't be seen to be endorsing their view. And you have this whole guilt by association thing start happening. Yeah. I think so much of what we're dealing with is we don't have a father. So when I started seeing everybody getting behind the Pope, part of me was like, oh, maybe we could have some brotherly love again, man. Like, I'm all for, even if there is tension, we all just sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, that's penetrating. That's very insightful, Anthony. I think that, you know, the dynamic of the family and the analogy of the family is really applicable, because when the father doesn't break up serious conflict, or when it escalates to the level that the father needs to get involved, then the kids will figure out how to do it themselves, and it's gonna be messy, and they're not going to do it well, right? Especially because at that point it's just become a power struggle, right? And it's not productive, and charity is certainly going to be sacrificed in the midst of it.
That's why Soloviev literally said he became Catholic, the Orthodox Russian. He said, he goes, well, this is when I realized I needed to look at Catholicism. When you don't have Papa to call brothers to the table, it will be endless squabbling. It's exactly what you guys just described. I think it's a perfect sort of
why there's a head of the family. Absolutely.
Sociological read. It's exactly what's happening.
Yeah. Dude, this was such a freaking unique opportunity. I'm so glad you both were open to coming on and just shooting this shit with each other, man. This was very cool. I know you guys have been on each other's shows, but it was kind of like unique in that Tim was pointing out a video Brian did, and then Brian jumped on and Tim jumped on. So yeah, look, I like I said, this whole thing, when I started seeing everybody get behind the Pope, I was kind of like a little excited that like maybe things like this might start happening again. So Tim, you're 100% right on the, like, these major issues have to be addressed. I want to give this Pope a little time to address them.
Me too. I want to give him time too. That's just what I was like, don't mischaracterize me. He needs a little time. He's not going to do it the first day. Even I was thinking that to Anthony Stein. I just don't like people beating him up, tone policing him, because we all have different voices, and that is the mark of men as opposed to women. We're like, yeah, this guy uses this colorful way to say it, or maybe is quicker to say it. This guy's more reticent or quiet or doesn't use it. I was joking when I said it. It sounded sarcastic. I want all the voices. But the point is, charity always requires justice first. It's like concentric circles. So there isn't the reason that Brian and I are getting together is because, you know, Brian's a nice guy, and I'm a nice enough guy to believe in dialogue. Always, 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 men of goodwill will dialogue directly with each other. Always, 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 men of bad will avoid dialogue. Apply that wherever you want. But I will say that it's a rule of faith for human life that you get honest parties together, they'll always dialogue. But what I'm saying about what's his name, Pope Leo XIV, is that this stuff won't start happening where you get true charity without justice. So if you do just get mimetic desire and people sort of kissing up or whatever, I'm trying to use G language, people kissing up and saying the politically correct thing. Now it's trad version of political correctness. And it's not just, and it is just covering for the Pope, like Pope splainers did for like Lofton for Pope Francis. Then you're not going to see the fruit of that tree. The fruit of the tree will be poisonous. This conversation is not going well, is not accruable to Leo XIV yet. We can start saying that once he, you know, passes the litmus test. This is because Brian's a man of good faith, and I'll stick up for myself. I'll dialogue with anyone I've ever beefed with, sincerely. Thanks though, Brian, and thanks Anthony. I just didn't want to be called because the trads used to do it because I wasn't down with. I didn't go to an SSPX chapel. They'd always say, "Oh, Tim doesn't really love the Latin Mass." I was just getting sensitive when I hopped off, and you were like, "The culture's there." I drive in 45 to go to Latin Mass when I go.
I thought so. I didn't know. I don't know. I know you love the Latin Mass. I don't know how often you attend it and stuff. So I was trying to relate it to like skateboard culture for you, because I see the residuals of that are still in your life. Like that's because in your youth it kind of formed you, and so it's like I don't want to even drag that whole thing up again. I wasn't trying to mischaracterize you or say anything about any of that. I was just trying to make a point. I was trying to make a point about culture. That's all.
Yeah, no, just for full clarity's sakes, my family, we receive the sacraments only when we go to New Orleans. We're going to double confirmation in New Orleans at the TLM. Then we do receive confession at the Boomer Nova Soul Parish 90 seconds away. And sometimes we go to mass there, but we don't typically receive the Eucharist. All that. I'm just saying I'm in that club. I am a TLM supremacist, and I love it. And I'm not making fun of trads for loving it. I'm with them. I'm just saying I get sick of the one note song where they think if we all go to the TLM, then we can abide Arianism or Nestorianism or whatever this heresy at some point, God willing, in the future will be the condemned name of Francis's heresy. If Leo XIV is who we're hoping he is, then he will condemn this heresy and will be shut of it.
Any closing thoughts, Brian?
I'd say the thing for me is we agree that there are cancers or there are diseases that need diagnosis, and I think we agree on the diagnosis, but the solution is where I think a lot of us are finding some disagreement. And in my mind, I'm trying to think of like the sort of the long game opportunity that exists here, because I don't see a lot of short game opportunity. I don't see how we can stage a protest in front of St. Peter's or something like that, where they're going to be like, oh, okay, let's revise this. Like, I just don't see us. I don't think we have much power. I think that the power has to actually rise to the rank of the episcopate, and only when that happens are we going to see some actual reforms here, because I don't think this generation is going to do it. As good as some of the best candidates might be, and God willing, Pope Leo XIV is one of those candidates. But if he's not, I don't see the reforms happening. But I do see the reforms happening if we can cultivate a generation who will assume those roles. And one of the best ways I think we can actually have that generation be solid is if they can gather in community. And the only way that they can do that is if there's Latin Mass communities for them to gather in. Because like, just thinking of my own kids, if we get split up and dispersed to Novus Ordos, the culture is going to swallow up like 75% of those kids. And there's probably a good number of vocations, religious vocations or clerical vocations in those numbers that wouldn't exist otherwise. In my archdiocese, last year, or maybe it was the year before, there was 4 vocations that joined the seminary. 3 of them came from our Latin Mass chaplaincy. Those are people, and again, like there's a whole missing generation of people who will be candidates for bishops, and it's the Gen X in my archdiocese, which means that millennials are going to assume the roles of becoming bishops right away here, and they're all super conservative. And if we can continue that trend, and not just continue it, but grow that generation, then I think that's the solution in my mind. And so I think that it's a dangerous oversight for them to allow the Latin Mass to continue the way it is.
100%. It is beautifully expressed by you. My whole concern is just there's what does Thomas say? The relation of the finite to the infinite is infinite, right? It's like a 0 over 10 as opposed to 1 over 10 or something. You never get to the doctrine discipline gap by just culture in a monarchy. And so I just everything as beautifully as you expressed it, double it for me as well about what's amazing and sublime about the TLM that seems culturally to lack with the Novus Ordo, though it's valid, whatever that mystery of iniquity will turn out to be. But what you can't get, I don't think, even if there are 10 times more of us, I don't think you're going to get, if, as my theory goes, that this is a kind of top-down Gallen mafioso culmination of the permanent instruction of the Alta Vendita, which is my strong belief. That's what the Gallen group is. Yeah. Then they're never going to allow it, even if it's a public outcry, even if there's 10 times 10 as many of us, in the Latin Mass. They're just always going to ignore it quiescently. They're just going to quiescently ignore it, notwithstanding the outcry. That's the danger of monarchies, and that's what we have. So I'm just saying the mark of the monarch, irrespective of what we're doing in our beautiful families, beautiful Latin Mass culture, all of that, the mark of the good monarch here is he's going to be toiling to get rid of the heresy, which has never happened before. It's in the Acta Apostolica Sedis. If you listen to nothing else I said here today, people of Avoiding Babylon, Brian Anthony, this has never happened, that it's actually kind of deliberately stuck into the deposit of faith. This is alert, and that's all I've ever been worked up about with the Francis Pontificate, that can't really easily be undone just by beautiful culture.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah. And again, the thing I would say is that hopefully someone from the ensuing generation will be in a position where they can undo it. I just don't think the current generation is going to be able to do it.
Yeah. And let's honestly hope that Burke is still, like, Tim, you got something to him once before, so let's see if we could get at least something to him again to maybe hope for something, because I think you are right about that clear. Well, like, let's just but like I said, we all should just give the Pope, let's give him a little time here. So
maybe this was an April 30 meeting. I didn't know that until I think this morning, that he had been at the secret meeting. I mean, that's my one. I have hope because of that, but I hadn't seen it as of most of last night until maybe very early this morning. So I don't characterize me as not having hope. I think that April 30th entering to the top secret summit at Burke's apartment literally could be them having the conversation, some iteration of the conversation that we just had.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim, you did a record 90 hours of streaming this week, man.
I was seeing through space and time yesterday. It was like 5 hours, because I went on my friend, quite frankly, show after yours. So it was wild. It was a wild day. And man, what if it had been Cardinal Robert Sarah? That would have been better. But God,
we still got a little hopium left in this one. But yeah,
no, I know.
I'm saying I had hopium for not really Sarah. I was hoping for a pizza balla, and Dolan. I was pro Dolan, man. You guys don't know what we missed out on. But all right, we're gonna
count, bro. I saw how much. Yeah, I mean, I get the irony, and I saw that article this morning. I thought maybe you disseminated it, saying saved the universe.
Think it's hilarious to push the jolly fat Irishman from New York as the Pope. I'm not being serious for those of you on Twitter, but all right, we're gonna wrap this up. Both of you guys, man, thank you both so much. We did 3 hours of streaming tonight, so man. If something else comes up.
Steph wanted to say one thing.
I just wanted to say a quick apology to Brian myself. I allow my trenchant mouth to get me in trouble when I think people are going after Tim, and I think I overreacted on that. So I also intend an apology your way, Mr.
all-
Holtz.
Well, thanks.
I
I
love
don't know what the apology is for because I didn't hear you say something, but I'll
I
just
think you-
I won't go looking for it.
No, it wasn't anything big. I think I just said something that we were being school marmed, but that I think that was it. That was it.
Steph, you're a maniac.
Yeah.
All right.
You're always
Brothers-
welcome here in the deep South, Brian.
Yeah.
They'll wonder
fair
at
enough.
the Canadian ways.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had the conversation tonight. So thanks, Anthony. That was
Me
great.
too.
Thanks, Tim.
All right,
Okay.
guys. We'll see you next time. I'll see you, boys.
God bless you all.
Okay.
Adios.
You too.
Peace.